Chapter 3784. Looking at the back of his bitter senior brother, Lin Yi nodded to himself. If everything went well, the strength of the three people by his side should be able to increase by another level. If these people became stronger, it meant that his own power would become stronger. At that time, his words would naturally have more weight. If Meng Jueguang and the others wanted to do anything, they would have to think twice before doing anything. This way, at least, he could avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble. Of course, for Lin Yi, the most important thing was his own strength. However, because he had just reached the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, it was not realistic to break through in a short period of time. He had to consolidate his strength for a period of time first. Other than that, Lin Yi's top priority was to take care of the two heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds. As long as these two seeds grew, he would not have to worry about getting the Foundation establishment pill. Otherwise, he would have to start having a headache searching for the heart-devouring exquisite grass. It had been a whole 8 days since the day he received the spiritual medicine seeds. Even with a cheating artifact like the space in the jade pendant, in addition to Lin Yi's daily supply of vital energy, the two heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds did not show any signs of germination. According to the sissy manager of the spirit medicine nursery, if everything went smoothly, he would usually see results in 15 to 20 days. Now that half of the time had passed, according to the growth pattern of ordinary plants, they should have started to germinate by now. Now that these seeds were acting recklessly, it made Lin Yi a little anxious. Fortunately, not only did the two heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds not move, the other 78 spiritual medicine seeds in the space in the jade pendant were the same. This made Lin Yi slightly relieved. Although it was still reckless, at least there was a comparison. He could rule out the possibility of the two heart-devouring exquisite grass seeds dying alone, and that was enough. And if the space in the jade pendant was blessed by the heavens, the possibility of all 80 spiritual medicine seeds dying was ridiculous. Lin Yi did not believe it even if he was beaten to death. If he could not cultivate the spiritual medicine with his current condition, then it would be better for the other newcomers to just give up. No matter how much effort they put in, it would all be in vain. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The third round of the newcomer challenge began as scheduled. This round was different from the previous 2 rounds. Although there were many matches between rookies in the previous 2 rounds, there wasn't much to see. Originally, the first round between Meng Tong and Xiao Ran was supposed to be an intense battle. However, in the end, Xiao Ran admitted defeat. As for the second round that followed, there was nothing to write home about. Among the top 5 rookies of Blue Cloud Pavilion, other than Meng Tong, who effortlessly took 3 points from Cha Wu, the other top 4 did not make any moves. All of them were just bystanders, and there was nothing to see. However, in the third round, Lin Yi, Li Jingming, and Xiao Ran might not make any moves, but there was no doubt that Meng Tong, who was currently ranked second in terms of points, would not make any moves. It was inevitable that he would be fighting against Xiao Hongkai, who was ranked 4th. Although their cave-dwelling rankings were very low, and the stakes were not that high regardless of who won or lost. If it was placed among the other rookies, it wouldn't be anything to see. However, don't forget that these two were natural enemies. Both sides had already said that they were not on good terms with each other, but the battle had yet to begin. It was already destined that once the two of them faced each other, it would be a battle full of gunpowder. One could even foresee a bloody battle between dragons and tigers. Of course, with Meng Tong's strength in the early stage of Foundation establishment against Xiao Hongkai, who was only at Heaven stage great perfection, it would be overestimating the latter to say that this battle would be a battle between dragons and tigers. However, there was no doubt that in this battle, Meng Tong would definitely make a move on Xiao Hongkai. The only suspense was whether Xiao Hongkai had the luck and strength to survive under Meng Tong's feet. The third round of the Blue Cloud Pavilion Rookie Challenge officially began. The other rookies tactfully remained silent. They had no intention of stealing the show and quietly waited for the two protagonists to come on stage. Meng Tong smiled proudly. He was very satisfied with the respectful performance of the rookies. He immediately strode onto the stage and pointed at Xiao Hongkai. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Today is the day you die. What's the matter, lumber waste? Do you want me to invite you up here? I say, don't tell me you want to be like that Xiao guy, a coward at the last moment? Meng Gao stood arrogantly on the stage, unbridledly ridiculing. Then I'm really disappointed. I thought that even though you're a bit useless, you're still a man. I didn't expect to find out that you're actually a woman. That Xiao guy is like this and you, lumber waste, are like this. No wonder people say that Lin Yi is a lecherous ghost. Don't tell me he likes you guys? Holy shit, that's really hardcore. The rookies in the audience immediately roared with laughter. Meng Tong's mockery was too much of a joke. Unbeknownst to them, this was an excuse that Meng Jueguang had specially given to him. It was to infuriate Xiao Hongkai and make him lose his rationality. If not, this rascal would be like Xiao Ran and become a coward, then it would be meaningless. Although Xiao Hongkai had a straightforward and hot-blooded personality, his actions of challenging Cha Wu was already a cunning attempt to avoid clashing with Meng Tong in the second round. He had to guard against him this time. This was a rare opportunity. Seeing how Lin Yi and company were becoming more and more arrogant by the day, he had to make an example of them and teach them a lesson in blood. Given Xiao Hongcai's usual personality, he would have gone up to him without a second word to be mocked in front of everyone. However, today his expression was surprisingly calm as usual. Holy shit! This was really the case of one who keeps company with ink being stained black. After spending so much time with Lin Yi, even a piece of trash like lumber waste had learned how to be a poser. Meng Tong and the other rookies were secretly surprised. Following that, they saw Xiao Hongkai greet Lin Yi and company before calmly walking up the stage. In a trance, Meng Tong suddenly felt that the lumber waste in front of him was somewhat different from a few days ago. Although he was still the same person, the feeling he gave was like he had been reborn. It was as though he had completely transformed. However, he could not tell what exactly was different. Fuck, what's there to care about a mere lumber waste? Meng Tong hurriedly threw this strange thought to the back of his head. What he needed to do next was to beat this lumber waste into a dead person. When that happened, he wanted to see if Lin Yi and company could continue acting. After walking up the stage, Xiao Hongkai looked at Meng Tong from head to toe and suddenly said, "Rookie Meng, don't tell me you didn't brush your teeth today?" Chapter 3785. Unexpectedly, Xiao Hongkai said with a straight face, "How is it unrelated? It's because you don't brush your teeth that your breath stinks. You're purposely affecting my mood, causing me to be in a bad mood, causing me to be unable to use my strength. This is cheating." The rookies below the stage could not help but burst into laughter. With lumber waste's straightforward temper, to be able to insult others in such a roundabout manner, it could be considered as exceeding his standard. Fuck. You're the one with bad breath. Your whole family has bad breath. Meng Tong was so angry that his mouth was crooked. If not for the referee watching from below the stage, he would have kicked Xiao Hongkai into a pulp. The mysterious pavilion referee could not help but laugh as well. After a short pause, he announced, "Blue Cloud Pavilion Newcomer Challenge Round 3, First Match. Abode 13 Meng Tong challenges Abode 12 Xiao Hongkai. Begin." With that, Meng Tong immediately increased his speed to the maximum and pounced at Xiao Hongkai, not giving him any chance to admit defeat. As an early-stage foundation establishment expert who specialized in the 1,000 kicks technique, Meng Tong's speed was considered one of the best among experts of the same level. In the eyes of the Heaven Stage Perfect Perfection Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies, his movement speed was so fast that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. There was no way to defend against it. Many rookies could not help but swallow their saliva. Although they did not think much of Meng Tong's intelligence, he was indeed strong. If they were in Xiao Hongcai's position, they would not even have the chance to beg for mercy, let alone defend. They would probably be swept to death with one kick. Although Xiao Hongcai's strength was slightly stronger than theirs, there was a limit to it. Against Meng Tong's ferocity, there was no other outcome other than death. 1,000 kicks 21 forms, die. Meng Tong suddenly shouted and pushed his movement speed to the maximum. In a flash, he appeared in front of Xiao Hongkai. 21,000 legs. This was the true strength of an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. The energy on his legs was sharp and cold. Thousands of leg shadows shone with a cold light. It was hard to tell what was real and what was fake. Although he didn't use any weapons due to the rules of the competition, the intimidation he gave off was not any weaker than divine weapons. Even the rookies, who were hundreds of feet away, could not help but hold their breaths, their scalps tingling. However, to everyone's surprise, in the face of Meng Tong's ferocious thousand legs 21 style, Meng Tong was unable to do anything. Xiao Hongkai didn't surrender like everyone expected. She didn't even have the slightest intention of dodging. She just stood there without moving, letting Meng Tong's thousands of leg shadows completely cover her. One had to know that when the 1,000 kicks reached the 21st form, not only did the actual leg possess unparalleled lethality, but even the illusions that seemed to only have a confusing effect were equally lethal. Although it couldn't compare to the most fatal kick, it was still a peak heaven rank powerhouse. If she was hit by these illusions, she would also be seriously injured. If her defense was slightly weaker, she might even die. Is Lumber Waist scared out of his wits? Why isn't he moving? The rookies looked at each other in dismay. Even a cultivator with poor eyesight would be able to tell that this place was dangerous. Xiao Hongcai's motionless posture was no different from waiting for death. If he reacted quickly and dodged immediately, even if he couldn't completely avoid Meng Tong's 1,000 legs, he would at least be able to avoid as many injuries as possible. But at the very least, he would be able to suffer less injuries. In this way, if he could survive the first wave of attacks, he would have a chance to catch his breath. There would always be a chance to say, "I admit defeat." Although serious injuries were unavoidable, if he worked hard, he would still be able to fight for a chance of survival. However, with Xiao Hongcai's foolish behavior, there was no way he could survive. Once Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks 21 forms was over, he would definitely die. If he could leave his corpse intact, it would be a blessing from his ancestors. Now we can prepare to collect this lumber waste corpse. I'll teach you guys a lesson. What happens when you go against me, Meng Jueguang? Meng Jueguang sneered as he looked at Lin Yi and the rest. Ever since Lin Yi came to the welcome pavilion, he had repeatedly challenged him, the big senior brother in charge. However, what surprised him was that he had never suffered any substantial losses. Other than the occasional exchange of a few good pieces of jade, Lin Yi was able to create miracles and take advantage of others. Meng Jueguang had almost lost all his face. But now, once Meng Tong killed Xiao Hongkai, Lin Yi's underling, on the spot, everything would be fine. At the end of the day, no matter how awesome Lin Yi was, he was just a rookie. In terms of strength and influence, he was not on the same level as Meng Jueguang. The reason why he was able to create a momentum of being on par with him was purely due to his miraculous performance of being undefeated. It was like blowing a bubble, constantly attracting attention. Step by step, he reached the position of the rookie overlord of Blue Cloud Pavilion. However, once this undefeated momentum was stopped, the bubble would instantly burst. Then Lin Yi, the rookie overlord of Blue Cloud Pavilion, would immediately be beaten back to his original state. At that time, the other rookies would realize that other than being a rookie like them, other than being slightly stronger, he was not even worth a fart. Using the challenge competition as a rare opportunity, allowing Meng Tong to kill Xiao Hongkai was the best way to burst this bubble. The more bloody and thunderous the method, the more shocking it would be. Xiao Hongcai's head, which was neither too big nor too small, could be used as a sacrifice. However, to Meng Jueguang's surprise, at that moment, even though Xiao Hongkai was about to die, Lin Yi and the rest did not seem worried at all. From their relaxed expressions, it seemed like they had a lot of confidence in Xiao Hongkai. A mere heaven stage perfect circle, being covered by Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks 21 style, would not even leave a complete corpse, let alone live. Yet, they still had confidence in Xiao Hongkai? These idiots must have been bewitched by a demon. At the same time, on the stage, Xiao Hongkai, who was the person in question, faced with the 1,000 kicks that were firmly covering her, finally began to move. Everyone in the audience curled their lips. This guy actually only reacted now? Wasn't he a little too slow? Lumber Waist was indeed Lumber Waist. His nickname was not just for show. Chapter 3786. Not to mention the mood of the audience, Xiao Hongkai, who was on the stage, was not in a hurry. Facing Meng Tong's 1,000 heavy leg shadows, he operated his true qi and struck out with his palm. His main martial skill was as straightforward as his personality. It looked ordinary, but it was actually very powerful. It was one of the best martial skills in the cultivation world. It was known as the cold iron palm. Xiao Hongkai was an ice attribute cultivator, and this cold iron palm was also one of the ice attribute cultivator's martial skills. Seeing Xiao Hongkai's posture, Meng Tong suddenly laughed. Cold iron palm? You dare to use such a useless martial skill? You want to deal with my 1,000 layers of leg shadows? Lumber waist, you are seeking your own death. Don't blame me for hitting you when you are down. After saying that, the 1,000 layers of leg shadows that surrounded Xiao Hongkai suddenly tightened. Not to mention the fact that it was difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. Even if he had guessed correctly and avoided the most fatal kick, the rest of the leg shadows would still be enough to kill a heaven stage full-cycle expert. Among all the common martial skills, the cold iron palm's lethality was top-notch, but that was it. Apart from lethality, the other aspects of the cold iron palm could not even be considered as passable. It was especially straightforward and lacked variation. If it could not even hit its target, then what was the use of the martial skill no matter how strong it was? Therefore, the cold iron palm had always been recognized as a useless martial art. Even among the common martial arts, it was considered to be at the bottom of the list. Even the most ordinary martial arts did not have much of a background and resources. Even the weakest martial artists would not be interested in this kind of useless martial art, except for those who had holes in their brains. In comparison, the 1,000 layers of leg shadows that Meng Tong practiced was much better. Whether it was in terms of attack, defense, or speed, it was a rare and excellent choice. There was a world of difference between the two. To put it simply, if the 1,000 kicks and cold iron palms were placed together and 10,000 practitioners were chosen, they would not be able to perform the 1,000 kicks and cold iron palm. At least 9,990 people would choose 1,000 kicks without any hesitation. As for the remaining 10 people, 9 of them would still choose 1,000 kicks after some hesitation. Only the last person would have the chance to consider cold iron palm, but in the end he would still choose to give up. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that 1,000 kicks wouldn't have an absolute advantage against cold iron palm if they were at the same level, but 1,000 kicks would definitely be able to take the initiative. Under normal circumstances, a cold iron palm expert would only have a powerful lethality. However, he could not even touch the edge of a 1,000-legged expert. He could only be toyed with by his opponent. This was the advantage brought about by martial techniques. Even experts of the same level had such a huge disadvantage, not to mention that one of them was at the peak of heaven stage, while the other was at the early stage of foundation establishment. In the eyes of anyone with common sense, there was no suspense at all in this kind of battle. Lumber Waist was definitely dead this time. This was the thought that popped up in the minds of almost all the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies below the stage. Of course. Except for Lin Yi and the others. In the blink of an eye, Xiao Hongkai's simple cold iron palm had already met Meng Tong's 1,000-legged afterimages. There was a huge tremor from the backstage, and a huge golden palm print actually broke through the 1,000-legged afterimages. Bang! A figure flew out in a sorry state. When they saw the person's face clearly, all the rookies below the stage, including Meng Jueguang, were instantly dumbfounded. The figure that was sent flying out in a sorry state. It was actually Meng Tong. How could it be Meng Tong? Did they see wrongly? Meng Jueguang and the others unconsciously rubbed their eyes, then looked at the person on the stage who was in a sorry state, but it was still Meng Tong. Only then did they react in disbelief. Just now, Lumber Waist, who was obviously going to die, actually broke through Meng Tong's 1,000-legged 21 styles with one palm, and even backhanded Meng Tong, an early-stage foundation establishment expert, into such a sorry state. It was really shocking. After this shocking face-to-face, Meng Jueguang and the others below the stage were stunned for a long time. Only Lin Yi and the others had expected this scene. Lin Yi realized that his golden finger was still there. Although he couldn't clearly see cultivators who were stronger than him without using the mantra, he could still clearly see the level of cultivators who were weaker or at the same level as him. It was true that a heaven stage great perfection cold iron palm expert would not have any chance of winning against a foundation establishment realm expert with 1,000 legs. However, what if this cold iron palm expert was also in the foundation establishment realm and had a trick up his sleeve? Everyone else, including Meng Jueguang, had assumed that Trash Qiao was still a heaven stage great circle cultivator that wasn't even worth mentioning. They had never thought that this guy would actually rush to break through to foundation establishment before this round of challenges, and even succeed in breaking through. When they understood this, Meng Jueguang and the others couldn't help but gasp. He knew that in the next round he would have to face Meng Tong, an early-stage foundation establishment expert, in a short 3 days, but he still dared to rush to the foundation establishment stage in such a short period of time. This lumber waste was a fucking lunatic. The audience was still in shock, but at this moment, Meng Tong, who was on the stage, was really shocked. It could even be said that he was horrified. Originally, Meng Tong had thought that he would be able to easily kill a piece of trash that he could step on easily. But in the end, not only was Meng Tong completely unscathed, he had even shattered a mouthful of teeth. This kind of inexplicable result really scared Meng Tong silly. Didn't this trash say that he was a heaven stage full circle cultivator? How did he suddenly become an early stage foundation establishment expert? Fuck, this is not scientific at all. Don't forget he, Meng Tong, was able to successfully build his foundation not only because he used a foundation establishment pill, but also because he went through Su Lingchong's channel to get a foundation establishment liquid that could only be encountered by luck. Using it together with the foundation establishment pill greatly increased the success rate, which was why he was lucky enough to succeed. But what did a mere lumber waste have? Not to mention foundation establishment liquid, he couldn't even get a foundation establishment pill. How could this kind of trash succeed in building his foundation? This kind of thing couldn't be understood at all. In a short 3 days, a mere heaven stage full circle cultivator was turned into an early stage foundation establishment expert by this trash. This kind of thing was really fucking absurd. Unfortunately, whether or not he could understand it, Meng Tong could at least confirm one thing. His pair of dog eyes had been blinded by lumber waste. While Meng Tong was still in a state of shock, Xiao Hongkai suddenly sneered, "What's wrong, newbie Meng? A dignified early-stage foundation establishment expert wouldn't be scared by my useless cold iron palm, right? From the looks of it, the so-called 1,000 legs 21 styles is only SOSO." Chapter 3787. Therefore, even though Meng Tong used all his strength to execute the 1,000 kicks 21 forms in an attempt to kill Xiao Hongkai in one move, he was not able to display the true mirage of the 1,000 kicks. Instead, he immediately withdrew his 1,000 kicks, giving Xiao Hongkai the opportunity to face him head-on. In terms of direct attacks, there was nothing that could compete with the cold iron palm, and the 1,000 kicks was no exception. The cold iron palm was mediocre in every other aspect, but its frontal lethality was top-notch. However, Meng Tong didn't do anything and directly confronted his opponent head-on. It would be unreasonable if he wasn't beaten up. In the end, it was not that the 1,000 kicks lost to the cold iron palm. In this exchange, Meng Tong suffered a loss because he underestimated his opponent. He thought that killing Xiao Hongkai would be easy and enjoyable. He would save some of his true qi so he could go back and cultivate the spiritual medicine seeds. Just so? Meng Tong finally reacted and sneered, "Lumber waste, don't think that just because I was careless and let you take advantage of me, you can really ride on my head and shit on me. Let me tell you you're trash. Don't even think about turning over a new leaf. So what if you're in the early stage of the foundation establishment stage? You think I can't kill you? You're too naive." After saying that, Meng Tong jumped up again and used his body movement to the extreme, charging straight at Xiao Hongkai. In that unexpected exchange, although Meng Tong was caught off guard and was slightly injured, he still used the 1,000 kicks 21 forms to fight against Xiao Hongcai's cold iron palm. Even if it was not as strong, it was enough to offset most of the cold iron palm's power. Therefore, at this moment his injuries were not serious and he still had the strength to fight. Then show me how you kill me. Xiao Hongkai replied with a sneer. Seeing that Meng Tong was so angry that he began to risk his life, Xiao Hongkai once again created layers of leg shadows to cover himself, but his response at this moment once again made everyone's jaws drop. Qi sank to the dantian. No matter how many leg shadows Meng Tong created in all directions, Xiao Hongkai didn't care about them in the slightest. It gave people the impression that Xiao Hongkai didn't care about Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks at all. The only thing he needed to do was to find an opportunity to use the 21st style of the cold iron palm. Clumsy and unable to adapt. Moreover, the cold iron palm's most fatal flaw was its slow execution speed. If it was in another situation, it would be fine. However, in a one-on-one match, the cold iron palm was definitely at a disadvantage. Xiao Hongcai's response might seem stupid, but he had no other choice. If he really followed Meng Tong's footsteps, he would definitely die. He reckoned that he would make himself dizzy from all the spinning. This was simply crippling his own martial arts. In the end, it was extremely likely that he wouldn't even be able to use the cold iron palm. But right now, he was defending his own territory and waiting for Meng Tong to come to him. Although this strategy seemed to be a helpless one, it was a passive one. But it might not be useless. You dare to fight me with this stupid look? Do you know how pigs die, lumberwaist? Meng Tong used his 1,000 kicks to confuse his opponent, causing him to be at a loss for what to do. How pigs die? I don't know. But let's see how you die. Then we'll know. Xiao Hongkai replied calmly. Stubborn. Meng Tong snorted coldly. With a thought, a few indistinguishable leg shadows swept towards Xiao Hongkai. However, Xiao Hongkai didn't move. He forcefully endured the attacks of these phantoms, but he still maintained the same posture, ready to attack. Although the 21st form of the 1,000 legs did not cause light damage, for a foundational level expert like Xiao Hongkai, it wasn't to the point where it would hurt his muscles and bones. Meng Tong couldn't help but be stunned. When the 1,000 legs reached the 21st form of the 1,000 legs, even the 1,000 leg shadows had a lot of power. Therefore, it was difficult to tell which leg shadows were real and which were fake. Other than himself, his opponent had no way of determining which leg shadows were real and which were fake. There were only two ways to deal with the 1,000 legs. One was to use a more powerful martial arts technique to destroy all the leg shadows, and the other was to guess. There was no other way. However, looking at Xiao Hongcai's unshakable posture, Meng Tong couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Could it be that this guy had a way to distinguish which leg shadows were real and which were fake? Otherwise, if he didn't determine that the leg shadows were fake, how could he be so unscrupulous and ignore them? One had to know that the 21st form of the 1,000 legs was performed by a foundational level expert. Even if the 1,000 legs was slightly weaker than the cold iron palm, the difference was still limited. If one was hit by a real leg, even if one didn't die, they would be seriously injured. This was not a joke. No matter how many times Meng Tong tried to test the waters, Xiao Hongkai didn't move at all. Even after Meng Tong threw a few more kicks at him, he didn't move at all. He gave off the feeling that he was an old monk in meditation, completely isolated from the outside world. Meng Tong couldn't help but be suspicious. He tested the waters a dozen times, and even used his real leg to sweep past the back of Xiao Hongcai's head a few times, but Xiao Hongkai still didn't move. Only then did Meng Tong's heart calm down. It turned out that this trash Xiao was just putting on an act. He was just imitating their pretentious leader to act pretentious. In fact, he simply couldn't tell whether his leg shadows were real or fake. To think that he actually thought that this guy had some sort of superior move to deal with his 1,000 kicks. But thinking about it carefully, the 1,000 kicks was recognized by the entire cultivation world as a top-notch martial skill. At least among the common martial skills, it was absolutely first-rate. Whether it was in terms of offense, defense, or confusion, once it was fully used, it would be an invincible existence. How could Xiao Hong, who was just an idiot, handle it with his cold iron palm? Fuck, I was just being careless. After being tricked by this trash, I thought too much. After understanding this point, Meng Tong once again laughed wildly. In the end, a trash will always be a trash. Even if he was lucky enough to reach the foundation building stage, he still couldn't escape the fate of being stepped on by me. Because the thousand legs shadow had once again surrounded Xiao Hongkai, Xiao Hongkai had fallen into an absolute passive position. As long as Xiao Hongkai didn't make a move, he could only foolishly stand there, not daring to make any other moves. Because once he moved, even if it was just a feint, he would inevitably reveal a flaw. After all, the cold iron palm couldn't be like the thousand legs shadow, which could perfectly combine fake and real. With its clumsy movements, it was impossible to deceive an expert of the same level. Chapter 3788. Bam, bam, bam. In the blink of an eye, another 3 leg shadows swept towards Xiao Hongkai from 3 completely different directions. Xiao Hongkai once again took it all in like before. With a muffled grunt, she endured it without moving an inch. This piece of trash was really a piece of trash that could only wait for death. It was only at this moment that Meng Tong finally let down his guard. Once bitten, twice shy. Although Meng Tong said that he did not take Xiao Hongkai seriously, to be honest, even with Meng Tong's arrogance, he could not help but feel a lingering fear after the previous encounter. Even though he knew that he had the upper hand, he did not dare to be as arrogant as before. In fact, he had been very careful until now. However, after so many tests, Meng Tong could already be sure that even if this lumber waste succeeded in building his foundation, he was just a piece of trash in the early stage of foundation building. Apart from being tricked just now, the rest of the time, lumber waste had no power to resist him at all. He could totally step on him without worry. Go to hell. After preparing for a long time, Meng Tong's most fatal killing move finally arrived. Although the 1000 kicks 21 forms could create 1,000 leg shadows, in the end, only the last leg was the most powerful killing move. Bam! A muffled sound of bodies colliding with each other was heard. The 1000 leg shadows dissipated instantly. The audience could clearly see that Meng Tong's leg had already landed on Xiao Hongkai's chest. There was no resistance, no defense. In such a situation, normal people would know that the chest was the most heavily guarded and the most difficult part to attack. If others were in Meng Tong's position, they would definitely kick at the back of the heart or even the back of the head. However, Meng Tong did the opposite. It actually had a miraculous effect. Xiao Hongkai paused for a moment, then suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. It was a shocking sight. Even if his boss, Lin Yi, is a poser, he wouldn't be able to take Meng Tong's 1000 legs 21 styles head-on, not to mention that he's just a lackey who's just built his foundation. He's really reckless. Meng Jueguang couldn't help but feel happy when he saw this scene. The shock he felt when he found out that Xiao Hongkai was in the early stage of foundation establishment disappeared instantly, and he felt relaxed. The scene of lumber waste spewing blood was a little horrifying. However, in Meng Jueguang's eyes, it was pleasing to the eye no matter how he looked at it. Not to mention spitting out a mouthful of blood, he wanted this lumber waste to spit out a whole vat of blood for 10 miles. Not only Meng Jueguang, anyone with discerning eyes could see that in this face-to-face encounter, Meng Tong definitely had the upper hand. Xiao Hongkai, who had just built his foundation, was in the early stage of foundation establishment. Without any resistance, he was directly hit in the chest. It was already amazing that he was able to hold on and not die. He was seriously injured. Will junior brother Xiao be all right? The bitter senior brother below the stage immediately became nervous. Although the news of Xiao Hongkai's success in building his foundation before the battle gave him a big surprise, even if he succeeded in building his foundation, his strength and realm had not been stabilized, he might not be Meng Tong's opponent. Even though Xiao Hongkai was still standing, he was seriously injured. If he didn't quickly admit defeat, he wouldn't be able to survive. If he didn't quickly admit defeat, Meng Tong would definitely not let go of this opportunity to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. If it was said that Xiao Hongkai was still in the heaven stage great perfection. Even if Meng Tong wanted to kill him, it was only because he listened to Meng Jueguang's words. In fact, he didn't take him seriously. But now that he found out that this trash had actually built his foundation, it was completely different. For Meng Tong, a heaven-stage great perfection Xiao Hongkai and an early-stage foundation establishment Xiao Hongkai were completely different concepts. The former could be trampled on, but the latter must be killed as soon as possible. Otherwise, a long delay would bring trouble. Both of them were at the same level, and he might be counterattacked by the opponent. I feel fine. Senior brother Ku, let's wait and see. Hongkai is not so easy to deal with. Lin Yi smiled faintly, without a trace of worry on his face. If Xiao Hongkai failed to build his foundation, then he might really be worried. But now, Xiao Hongkai was an early-stage foundation establishment expert. Even if he was seriously injured, it would still be difficult for Meng Tong to kill him. As long as he didn't die on the spot, no matter how serious his injuries were, he was confident that he could recover in a short period of time. So there was nothing to worry about. Moreover, although it seemed that Xiao Hongkai was seriously injured and Meng Tong had the absolute upper hand, was that really the case? At least, in Lin Yi's opinion, it was far from the truth. As expected, before Lin Yi finished his sentence, Xiao Hongkai suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Newcomer Meng, do you think you can defeat me like this?" What kind of stupid question is that? Lumber waist, have you been kicked silly or something? Do you think you have a chance to turn defeat into victory? Meng Tong laughed out loud. Even now, his feet were still firmly planted on Xiao Hongkai's chest. If he exerted a little more force, Xiao Hongkai would continue to vomit blood. He could even hear the sound of his sternum breaking. Turn defeat into victory? Xiao Hongkai's face was pale, and his mouth was full of blood. Suddenly, he smiled ferociously. I have never been defeated before. How can I turn defeat into victory? But newcomer Meng, you have reminded me. Don't worry, I won't give you such a chance. Meng Tong was stunned. When he came to his senses, he was about to mock her, but he found that he had no chance at all. Because Xiao Hongkai suddenly made a move. Bang! With lightning speed, Xiao Hongkai's cold iron palm, which he had been preparing for a long time, was finally thrown out. Meng Tong was completely unprepared, and one of his legs even landed on his chest. He was simply a live target, and it was too late for him to escape. Although cold iron palm was widely recognized as a useless martial art technique, it was extremely clumsy and could not hit anyone under normal circumstances. But once it hit someone, it would really be fatal. As soon as the palm hit, everyone heard a bone-cracking sound that made their scalps tingle. Amidst the exclamations of disbelief, Meng Tong's entire body was directly sent flying and fell on the edge of the arena. His body was a bloody mess. Even an experienced guy like Meng Jueguang couldn't help but gasp when he saw this scene. He murmured, "This lumber waist is really fucking ruthless." Anyone could tell that Xiao Hongkai's palm strike had been premeditated for a long time. If it could be said that Meng Tong had only been careless and had been tricked by Xiao Hongkai in the first exchange, then this exchange was where Xiao Hongkai truly displayed his strength. Chapter 3789. In order to hit Meng Tong with his final palm strike, he had suffered the injuries of so many afterimages of Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks. This fellow had not uttered a single word, and had even directly taken the full damage of Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks 21 style. First injuring a few, then injuring the enemy. Only then did Meng Tong seize this opportunity. For an expert in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm who had just entered the Foundation Establishment realm, once he was hit by the 1,000 kicks 21 styles, the result would be fatal. In other words, Xiao Hongkai's strategy of injuring a few before injuring the enemy might not even have a chance to fight back. He would be killed first. This possibility was not small. Moreover, even if Xiao Hongkai could survive Meng Tong's 1,000 kicks 21 styles, he might not be able to find a chance to fight back. Because if he took the full brunt of the 1,000 kicks 21 styles, he would be seriously injured. Once his tendons and veins were damaged, he would not be able to circulate his true qi. No matter how long he prepared his cold iron palm, he would not be able to use it, let alone fight back. However, even though he knew that his chances of winning were slim, Xiao Hongkai still did not hesitate to gamble. If it was any other normal person, if they were not forced into a desperate situation, they would not gamble like a desperate gambler. Was there a hole in their brain? He was ruthless to others, but he was even more ruthless to himself. Although this lumber waste looked vulnerable, he was actually a ruthless person. You really can't judge a book by its cover. At this moment, on the stage, Meng Tong had taken the full brunt of the Cold Iron Palm's 21 styles. His face was pale as paper and he kept vomiting blood. Although it seemed that he would not die for a while, he did not even have the strength to say a word. Wanting him to stand up and fight again? On the other hand, Xiao Hongkai had relied on an extremely patient counterattack to completely reverse the situation in an instant, and he had even almost succeeded in killing Meng Tong with a single move. Such a magnificent feat had truly blinded the eyes of everyone present. It was no exaggeration to say that after today's fight, Xiao Hongkai would definitely become famous. As for the nickname Lumber Waste, from then on, they would be cut off from him. If he was Lumber Waste, then what about Meng Jueguang's Meng Tong? An idiot who couldn't even defeat a piece of trash? Lin Yi and the rest looked at each other, their faces filled with satisfaction. Xiao Hongcai's hidden trump card was too satisfying. What did I say before? I said that junior martial brother Xiao was just like all of you, that he wasn't an ordinary person. See, I was right. Senior martial brother Ku Bai was so surprised that he was incoherent. These years of bitter life had taught him a bloody lesson. That was, no matter where you went, you would suffer if you didn't have the strength. No matter what good things happened, you had to stand aside, and no matter what bad things happened, you had to take the blame. At the end of the day, there was an old saying that lagging behind meant getting beaten up. In the world of cultivation, the only standard to measure the right to speak was strength. If one was strong, then everything would be easy to negotiate. But if they were not strong enough, then they could only die. Senior brother Ku Bai had a deep understanding of this. Previously, Lin Yi was already able to compete with Meng Jueguang. Now, Xiao Hongkai was showing signs of becoming the #1 expert. If Xiao Ran was included, they would be able to speak and do things with confidence in the future. Just as senior brother was being forced to speak, Xiao Hongkai, who had sent Meng Tong flying with a palm strike on the stage, was still moving towards Meng Tong step by step, even though her face was even paler than before. The crowd below the stage exclaimed in surprise. Junior brother Xiao, this is your plan? The bitter senior brother was a little confused. He had vaguely guessed what Xiao Hongkai wanted to do, but he didn't dare to believe that this guy actually had such great courage and ruthlessness. Evil must be eradicated. Since they don't intend to leave Hongkai alive, we naturally don't need to care about their feelings. Indecisiveness will only lead to trouble. When dealing with enemies like this, we have to step on them ruthlessly until they die. Senior brother Ku, you should understand this principle, right? Lin Yi said calmly. In the past, Lin Yi could not be ruthless, so he left Kong Ming Ming, the hidden danger. Now, Lin Yi had matured a lot, so he naturally understood a lot of things. Yes, of course I know. The bitter senior brother nodded repeatedly. How could he not understand this principle? However, he had always been the one being stepped on. When had he ever grasped this kind of initiative? Just like how Meng Jueguang deliberately planned to let Meng Tong kill Xiao Hongkai to deal a blow to Lin Yi, if Xiao Hongkai was able to kill Meng Tong in today's battle, then the blow to Meng Jueguang would be equally huge. Don't forget, Meng Tong was the only newcomer that Meng Jueguang had promoted so far. If even he ended up being killed, then the other newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion could not be counted on at all. At that time, Lin Yi would probably not even need to wave his hand, and they would take the initiative to defect to him. While they were talking, Xiao Hongkai had already walked step by step to the front of Meng Tong under everyone's watchful eyes. Then she raised her palm with a murderous look. Looking at Xiao Hongcai's fierce look, Meng Tong was so scared that he wet his pants on the spot. Fuck, this is not right. Today, we agreed to trample him to death easily. How did it suddenly turn out like this? I'm the meat on the chopping block. In the blink of an eye, how did the position change completely? However, Meng Tong had just been hit by the 21st style of the Cold Iron Palm. Now, he was almost in a state of near death. Being able to hang on to his last breath was already the best he could do. Not to mention moving, even opening his mouth to speak was a luxury. In this situation, If Xiao Hongkai were to kill him, not only would Meng Tong not be able to dodge, he would not even be able to open his mouth to surrender. He could only lie on the ground in this extremely twisted position, waiting for death. At this moment, not only was Meng Tong scared to the point of peeing, but Meng Jueguang, who was in the audience, was also frightened. If Xiao Hongkai really succeeded, then not only would Meng Tong die, but he, Meng Jueguang, would also suffer a heavy loss. However, according to the rules of the newcomer challenge, other than the two on the stage voluntarily admitting defeat, no one else was allowed to interfere. In other words, unless Meng Tong took the initiative to surrender, even Meng Jueguang, the big senior brother, could not save him. He could only watch as he was beaten to death. Meng Tong wanted to take the initiative to surrender, but the most fatal problem was that he could not open his mouth at all. At the moment, the only person who could decide whether Meng Tong lived or died was Xiao Hongkai. No one else, including the referee, could stop him. Chapter 3790. Meng Tong mumbled in horror for a while, only to see his throat squirm. In a hurry, a mouthful of blood suddenly blocked his throat, making him unable to speak at all. His originally bloodless face instantly became even paler. Even if it was an early-stage foundation establishment expert, when his life was truly in the hands of others, he would not be any more tenacious than an ordinary person. On the contrary, the higher the person was, the more fragile he would be in such a situation. This was because the higher he climbed, the harder he fell. He would lose far more than an ordinary person. Accustomed to Meng Tong's arrogance and disregard for the other newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Xiao Hongcai's insufferably arrogant behavior, compared to his current pathetic and lowly appearance, made Xiao Hongcai laugh. Sure enough, people are cheap. If you think too highly of yourself, in the end, you will find out that you are not even a fart. Looks like newcomer Meng Tong has nothing else to say. Then this trash will reluctantly send you on your way. If you have any words in the future, remember to call me in my dreams. Xiao Hongkai sneered and immediately gathered vital energy on her palm, preparing to send Meng Tong on his way. In an instant, it was as if time had frozen. Everyone did not even dare to breathe too loudly. Their eyes were glued to Xiao Hongcai's movements, and they could not help but swallow their saliva. As for Meng Jueguang, his face was so gloomy that it could drip water, but there was nothing he could do. Murder and arson were nothing new in the world of cultivation. Back then, when more than 1,000 people from the Qiushui manor were silenced, it was only a topic of gossip. In comparison, only a handful of people would die in the newcomer challenge. There was nothing worth paying attention to. However, this was indeed the first time they had seen someone die in the Welcome Pavilion. This was the first time someone had died. Furthermore, it was the final stab in front of all the rookies. This was an unprecedented precedent. Today, after killing Meng Tong, Xiao Hongkai would definitely replace him and become the dark horse of this year's Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers. She would become a fearsome demon under Lin Yi. Go in peace. Xiao Hongkai sneered and struck Meng Tong with the 20th form of the cold iron palm. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. His heart instantly leaped to his throat. Seeing that Meng Tong was about to die under the iron palm, Xiao Hongcai's iron palm suddenly stopped, less than 10 centimeters away from Meng Tong's forehead. Holy shit! What is Lumber Waist trying to do? That palm strike was clearly enough to subdue him, but he stopped at the last moment. Wasn't this a joke? Meng Jueguang's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. Meng Tong's death was an unacceptable blow to him. If this old cat Xiao Hongkai continued to tease him like a mouse, then his face would be completely lost. In the future, he wouldn't even be able to lift his head when he saw other new disciples of Clear Cloud Pavilion. However, just as Meng Jueguang was about to explode, Xiao Hongkai suddenly groaned. She fell to the ground with a mouthful of blood. She struggled for a long time but could not get up. Holy shit! I was so scared that I was on tenterhooks. It turns out that this piece of trash is just a piece of trash who is outwardly strong but inwardly weak. Sure enough, a piece of trash is a piece of trash. Meng Jueguang was the first to react and was immediately overjoyed. He let out a long sigh of relief with lingering fear. The other newcomers also started discussing. As for Lin Yi and company, they could not help but look at each other. It was not easy for them to make it to the last step, but they did not expect it to be for naught. In fact, thinking about it, it was a miracle that Xiao Hongkai could last until now. Not only did he suffer the full damage of Meng Tongtong's 1000 Kicks 21 styles, but he also endured the serious injury and forcefully used the cold iron palm 21 styles. If it was any other ordinary early-stage foundation establishment expert, perhaps they would have already collapsed. To be able to hold on until now, Xiao Hongkai's feat could already be called a man of iron and blood. This time, not only did the newcomers below the stage burst into an uproar, even the referee from Mysterious Pavilion did not know what to do. On both sides, Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong were both seriously injured and could not move. Neither could do anything to the other. Although the two of them were not far from death, they could not help each other. They could only stand in this awkward stalemate. What should we do now? The bitter senior and Lin Yi looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. According to the rules of the newcomer challenge, the results could only be decided by the two sides. No one else had the right to interfere. However, the situation was troublesome. Both of them could not move. Meng Tong could not even speak for a while. As for Xiao Hongkai, although she could speak, she could not take the initiative to admit defeat. The two of them could not do anything to the other. They could only continue to waste time like this. However, when would it end if they continued to waste time like this? The other newcomers were still waiting to challenge them. What's more, although Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong were still hanging on to their last breaths, they weren't in a good condition. If they continued to fight like this, they might both die in the ring. That would be hilarious. It had not even been 2 months. Newcomers who were able to reach the foundation establishment stage were rare stocks with great potential. Especially in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Especially since both of them were foundation establishment cultivators, if they were to let these two rookies with great potential die in the arena, it would be a huge problem. The so-called newcomer assessment system would be criticized to the point of no return. However, the rules of the newcomer challenge had been approved by the elders. Including the referee, no one present could interfere. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. If there was a stain on their record, it would be too bad. Helpless, the Mysterious Pavilion's referee could only ask Meng Jueguang to invite the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng. Although Hu Yunfeng did not have the right to interfere with the newcomer challenge, he was still the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, so he could more or less make a decision. After Hu Yunfeng was invited, he saw that Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong were in a stalemate. He was speechless and shook his head. He could not say a word for a long time. To be honest, he had spent a lot of time and effort on this rookie assessment system. He had considered all aspects and was counting on this as a political achievement. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get the approval of the big shots in the Elder Council. However, this situation had never been taken into consideration. Other than the ban on weapons, there were no other restrictions. Under such loose rules, a duel between cultivators could result in a situation where both sides were injured and neither could do anything to the other. This was simply unbelievable. Chapter 3791. Although he was biased towards Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, he was still the pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion after all. He couldn't be too biased in front of everyone. In this situation, he couldn't judge Xiao Hongkai as the winner and Meng Tong as the winner. At most, it could be considered a draw. Although Meng Jueguang was only a senior in charge now, Hu Yunfeng had his own information channels. He already knew that Su Lingchong planned to support Meng Jueguang. In this way, both of them could be considered as Su Lingchong's people. In the future, they would be under the same faction, so they had to be more courteous to each other. A draw. Meng Jueguang was stunned. He purposely lowered his voice so that the people around didn't hear it. For Hu Yunfeng, the pavilion master, to declare this match a draw would show his objective and fair image. After all, everyone could see that Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong fought to such an extent. It was naturally reasonable to say that it was a draw. No one could find fault with it. However, his suggestion just now was made to Meng Jueguang in private. This meant that if Meng Jueguang had any objections, there was still a chance to turn things around. Meng Jueguang was an experienced and astute person. He naturally couldn't not see the knack in this. Hu Yunfeng was leaving some leeway for him and was prepared to take the opportunity to do him a favor. He wouldn't even dare to think of such a thing in the past. After all, Hu Yunfeng was the pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion, while he, Meng Jueguang, was just a small senior in charge. There was a huge difference in their statuses. Furthermore, they had a true superior and subordinate relationship. If there was anything, Hu Yunfeng would just give an order and it would be over. How would it be possible for Hu Yunfeng to discuss with him politely? Indeed, one had to look at the master before beating a dog. With young master Su Lingchong backing him up, the treatment was indeed different. Based on this situation, if he were to take the position of the third pavilion master in the future, even the high and mighty pavilion master Hu Yunfeng had to address him as a brother and hand over his arm. Meng Jueguang was secretly pleased. He thought for a moment before saying, "Lord Pavilion Master, the newcomer assessments rules don't have the word in it. After all, this rule was approved by the Elders Guild. If we were to change it in private, I'm afraid we'll be said to be disrespectful to the higher-ups and attract gossip. We are martial artists. There's no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. This is the principle." That's not wrong, but this matter has to be dealt with in a timely manner. If this drags on and something happens to the two newcomers on stage, it will be difficult for you and me to explain to the higher-ups. Hu Yunfeng said hesitantly. Indeed. Directly adding the never-before-seen word of a draw without the approval of the higher-ups was more or less risky. However, if it continued to drag on like this and allowed Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong, two newcomers with potential in the early stage of the building foundation stage, to be exhausted to death, then the consequences of this matter would be far more serious than the former. At that time, once this matter was seized by people with ulterior motives, it could be used to build momentum. Then he, Hu Yunfeng, as the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, would inevitably be labeled as incompetent and incompetent. This was not a joke. Being dismissed on the spot was already a light punishment. It might even alarm the law enforcement hall. Once those shameful things on his body were dug out, if that happened, it would be difficult for Hu Yunfeng to not die. Thus, even if he had to bear the risk of being gossiped about by others, Hu Yunfeng had to quickly end this battle where both sides would suffer. After all, it wasn't like he didn't have people at the higher-ups. As long as he didn't alarm those fiends in the law enforcement hall, it wouldn't be a big problem for him to be gossiped about. Hearing this, Meng Jueguang rolled his eyes and said, "Lord Pavilion Master, actually, I have an idea. There's no need to drag on like this, and there's no need to use the never-before-seen word in the rules. There's no need to take any risks. Moreover, there's evidence, so no one can find fault with it." Then Jueguang quickly said, Hu Yunfeng's eyes couldn't help but light up. If he could have the best of both worlds, it would be the best for him. Meng Jueguang chuckled and immediately went over. He said this and that in a low voice, causing Hu Yunfeng to nod his head and slap the table in praise. The two of them secretly planned for a while. Then, Hu Yunfeng walked onto the stage and announced to the crowd, "Due to the special circumstances of this battle, both rookies are injured and have lost the ability to move. There's no point in continuing to waste time like this. It might even cause our welcoming pavilion to lose two rookies with potential. Thus, I, the pavilion master, have decided to stop this battle in the name of the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion." These words didn't cause any controversy. Everyone, including Lin Yi and the others, knew that this was the inevitable result. Otherwise, if they allowed Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong to continue wasting time, Hu Yunfeng's position as pavilion master would probably come to an end. However, the next few words that Hu Yunfeng said caused an uproar among the crowd. However, even though both sides are injured and no one can do anything to the other, the newcomer challenge competition has never had a draw. A loss is a loss and a win is a win. According to the rules, the challenger with a lower rank in the cave abode is naturally the weaker party. Even if it's a draw, it can be said that the weaker party has defeated the stronger party. Our welcoming pavilion has always advocated not fearing the stronger party and facing difficulties head-on. Thus, I, the pavilion master, announced that the winner of this battle is Meng Tong from Cave Abode number 13. Hu Yunfeng said righteously. Count Meng Tong as the winner? The crowd was stunned. After they recovered from their shock, there was an uproar and a flurry of discussion. Although Hu Yunfeng's words, in theory, there was nothing to nitpick about. After all, according to the rules of the newcomer challenge competition, the challenger couldn't drag the time and had to make the first move within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense. However, everyone could see that in this battle, Xiao Hongkai had obviously turned the tables and gained the upper hand. If they had to give an explanation, it would be more reasonable to say that both sides were injured. However, Hu Yunfeng had directly judged that he had lost to Meng Tong. This was obviously unfair to Xiao Hongkai. Of course, this matter didn't concern them. The others would at most watch the commotion and discuss it. It wouldn't cause any disturbance. However, as the boss of Xiao Hongkai, Lin Yi wouldn't just watch his little brother suffer. Pavilion Master Hu, forgive me for being curious, but have you ever seen a battle where the winner lies on the ground, not knowing if he's dead or alive, while the loser is still standing on the stage? Lin Yi slowly walked to the edge of the arena, raising an eyebrow as he asked. At this moment, after hearing Hu Yunfeng's announcement, Meng Tong let out a sigh of relief and fainted. On the other hand, Xiao Hongkai, who was judged to be the loser, forced himself to stand up. Chapter 3792. After being slapped in the face by a rookie like Lin Yi, Hu Yunfeng was immediately put on the spot. Although Meng Jueguang's suggestion sounded reasonable, the situation in front of him was really embarrassing. This feeling was like a referee blowing a whistle against his conscience, only to be exposed on the spot. Even with Hu Yunfeng's thick skin, he could not help but feel ashamed. This Meng Tong was really useless. Would it kill him to grit his teeth and hold on a little longer? Why did he have to fall so quickly? Didn't he see that Xiao Hongkai could still stand up? But, no matter how embarrassed he was, words that he had said were like water that had been spilled. No matter how ironic the situation was, he could only bite the bullet and hold on. Your name is Lin Yi, right? A rookie dares to criticize this pavilion master's decision. Didn't the steward teach you the rules of the welcome pavilion? Hu Yunfeng looked coldly at Lin Yi and reprimanded him harshly. After pausing for a moment, Hu Yunfeng continued, but since you've asked, I'll reluctantly answer your question in front of so many people. Just now was just now, and now is now. Regardless of whether they are standing or kneeling, at least when this pavilion master announced the decision, neither of them could stand up. Do you have any objections? The audience looked at each other when they heard this. Although Hu Yunfeng's words were full of vigor, the content was pure sophistry. Everyone knew that the rules of the rookie challenge competition were to ensure fairness. The most basic and core concept was that the winner had to be decided by the contestants themselves, including the referee. No one was allowed to interfere for any reason. And in this lose-lose match, although Hu Yunfeng had no choice but to interfere, he had to minimize the interference to the outcome of the match. However, it was necessary to minimize the interference to the outcome of the competition. And the result was clearly a black whistle. He did not hesitate to favor Meng Tong, which clearly went against the original intent of the rookie challenge. His words could be said to be sophistry, but it was not an exaggeration. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh coldly. He was about to retort, but unexpectedly, Xiao Hongkai forced herself to walk down the stage. He gave Lin Yi a look, indicating that there was no need to continue arguing with Hu Yunfeng. Although he was very grateful to Lin Yi for standing up for him, he also knew that with the difference in status and identity between them, this kind of reasoning wouldn't yield any results. Even if he, boss Lin Yi, was strong and powerful, it couldn't change the fact that he was still a newcomer in the Clear Cloud Pavilion. A mere newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion dared to argue with the pavilion master of the Welcoming Pavilion? No matter how righteous he was, it was useless. The result was already determined. Lin Yi was well aware of this. Since Xiao Hongkai had the same intention, there was no need for him to continue being entangled with Hu Yunfeng. She had to let Xiao Hongkai vent her anger on herself. As for Hu Yunfeng, Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. In the common world, there were many powerful people who had been stepped on by him. He wasn't in a hurry. A hero shouldn't be afraid of a weak background. This was also applicable on Sky-class Island. Was Zhang Liju a newcomer from the common world? But what would happen in the end? Ku Shixiang. You go back with Hong Kai first. I'll come over to heal him later. Lin Yi said to Ku Shixiang. Although Qiao Hongkai was heavily injured, Lin Yi was 100% sure that he could heal him in a short period of time. But Lin Yi was 100% sure that he'd be able to make a full recovery in a short amount of time. The challenge wasn't over yet, however, and Lin Yi and Xiao Ran had to stay here. Ku Shixiang and the others froze. They knew that Lin Yi was an elixir refiner, but they had never heard that he could heal people. He could concoct elixirs and heal wounds. Was Lin Yi heading in the direction of Miracle Dr. Dan St. Zhang Liju? Although they were confused, Ku Shixiang and the others didn't ask. As far as they were concerned, Lin Yi probably had a 4th level supreme level elixir or a 5th level supreme level elixir in his hands. Ku Shixiang nodded at Lin Yi and left with Qiao Hongkai. Lin Yi and the others stopped protesting. With that, the duel between Qiao Hongkai and Meng Tong was finished. Although it was a lose-lose situation, Meng Tong took advantage of Hu Yunfeng's favoritism. He took 4 points from Qiao Hongkai and took the 12th cave. Boss, what do you think if I challenge Meng Tong now? Xiao Ran suggested. Meng Tong was unconscious now, and even if he woke up, he would be useless. If Xiao Ran were to challenge him now, Meng Tong's only choice would be to surrender. Otherwise, for the sake of Qiao Hongkai, even an honest man like Xiao Ran wouldn't mind sending him on his way. On top of that, Meng Tong was currently residing in the 12th dwelling at the foot of the mountain. In the entire Clear Cloud Pavilion, other than the heavily injured Xiao Hongkai, the only people who could challenge him were Cha Wu in the 14th dwelling and Xiao Ran in the 15th dwelling. If Xiao Ran proposed to challenge Meng Tong, it would be reasonable. Even if Meng Jueguang and the others pulled Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng over, it would be useless. They wouldn't be able to find any reason to stop Xiao Ran. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi smiled indifferently and said, "Let's leave this resentment to Hong Kai in the next round. Just follow the original plan and fight your way up one cave at a time. Not only will you not waste your points, but you might even make Meng Tong cry even more." Xiao Ran was stunned. Looking at Lin Yi's mysterious smile, he thought for a moment and smiled knowingly, "Then I know what to do." The reason was very simple. If he challenged Meng Tong now, it would indeed be hitting him while he was down, and he would be able to help Qiao Hongkai vent her resentment. But there would be a side effect, and that was Meng Tong would jump back to the 15th cave. In this way, as long as Meng Tong admitted defeat and took out the 4 points he had just obtained, he would be able to buy the 15th cave, which was an excellent safe haven. As long as he didn't challenge Meng Tong, no one would be able to disturb him. Such an outcome was obviously not what Lin Yi and the others wanted to see. Before making Meng Tong pay a heavy enough lesson, how could they let him off so easily? Not to mention Qiao Hongkai, even Lin Yi wouldn't agree to this. On the surface, Hu Yunfeng's decision to side with Meng Tong did seem to give Meng Tong a great advantage, but in a sense, it was equivalent to pushing him into a pit of fire at the same time. Chapter 3793. After the bloody battle between Qiao Hongkai and Meng Tong in the Blue Cloud Pavilion Newcomer Challenge, the third round continued. This time, the challenger was Xiao Ran. Xiao Ran from the 15th abode of the mountain, challenged Cha Wu from the 14th abode of the mountain. Xiao Ran announced in a clear voice after he walked into the ring. As soon as he said that, there was an uproar among the newcomers. Meanwhile, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, who had just woken up, could not help but heave a sigh of relief. In their eyes, Xiao Ran, as Qiao Hongcai's accomplice, had watched as Qiao Hongkai was whistled. Xiao Ran must have stood up for Qiao Hongkai. Why would he challenge a weakling like Cha Wu? It was simply inexplicable. Compared to the others, Cha Wu's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot when he heard Xiao Ran's words. It was too horrible to look at and he almost blurted out, "Fuck?" Before this, after watching the fight between Qiao Hongkai and Meng Tong, especially after hearing Hu Yunfeng's unfair judgment, Cha Wu was actually quite happy in his heart. Of course, he was not stupid enough to challenge Meng Tong. Although Meng Tong was now severely injured and as long as he challenged Meng Tong, it would be a piece of cake for him to gain 4 points. However, if he really dared to kick Meng Tong while he was down, he would definitely be doomed. He would not even know when he died. However, although he did not plan to kick Meng Tong while he was down, Cha Wu still saw an opportunity in it. It was an opportunity for Meng Tong and Lin Yi to fight each other while he remained aloof. Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong were both injured. In order to stand up for Xiao Hongkai, Xiao Ran would directly challenge Meng Tong. When Meng Tong recovered, he would definitely challenge Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai out of consideration of face and points. This was the ideal scenario in Cha Wu's mind. It had to be known. There were only a total of 18 rounds in the challenge competition. If they kept going back and forth between the cave abodes with low rankings, it was obviously not worth it for strong rookies like Meng Tong. They had to fight to a higher ranking as soon as possible to have a chance to grab more challenge points. Therefore, in theory, Cha Wu's ideal scenario was very likely to become a reality. However, he did not expect that Xiao Ran would give him a hard slap the moment he came up. When Cha Wu saw Xiao Ran's refined and reserved aura of an expert that was as unmoving as a mountain, he nearly teared up. Can't you have some brotherly code of brotherhood? Can't you see that Xiao Hongkai has just suffered such a huge grievance? Hurry up and step on Meng Tong to avenge him. What kind of bullshit are you trying to do to a weakling like me? No matter how many profanities he cursed, Cha Wu could only reluctantly walk up to the arena. He had no choice but to accept the challenge. Blue Cloud Pavilion Newcomer Challenge Round 3, Second Match. Cave Abode 15, Xiao Ran, challenges Cave Abode 14, Cha Wu. Begin. The referee announced. Please. Xiao Ran did not change his expression and made a gesture. Cha Wu's scalp suddenly went numb. Although he knew that he, as the bottom of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, would definitely not be able to defeat Xiao Ran. It was more reliable and safer to admit defeat at this time. However, no matter how weak he was still a heaven stage great perfection expert. Any cultivator had strong self-esteem. Even a weakling like Cha Wu, who was trampled on by everyone, was no exception. Judging from his previous performance, this Xiao Ran was indeed not simple. However, after all, he had never really fought to the death with anyone. Last time, he was challenged by Meng Tong and even took the initiative to admit defeat. This meant that this guy's strength might not be as strong as everyone thought. Maybe he was just pretending? After all, this Xiao Ran was a guy from the secular world. It was natural that his foundation was not good. The probability of him being a fake was not small at all. It was impossible for every cultivator from the secular world to be as abnormal as Lin Yi, right? If that was really the case, the status of the secular world and Heaven Stage Island would have been changed long ago. Why would this group of people go through so much trouble to come to Heaven Stage Island? Cha Wu still had 4 points. If he could win today's match, not only would he not lose 2 points, he could even earn some points from Xiao Ran. This way, as long as he could make 2 spiritual herb seeds grow in the spiritual herb trial, he would be able to protect his last shred of shame. At least, he would not fall into the negative points and would have a chance of survival. However, if he took the initiative to admit defeat today, there would be no chance of survival. Therefore, no matter what, Cha Wu could only grit his teeth and choose to fight with Xiao Ran. Holding on to this little bit of luck, Cha Wu finally mustered up the courage to attack after taking a deep breath. Compared to Meng Tong, who was in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, even if Cha Wu went all out, his speed could not be said to be fast, let alone give Xiao Ran any pressure. Xiao Ran did not even use the shadow step. He simply moved horizontally and directly avoided his opponent's attack. Then, while his opponent was not able to react, Xiao Ran stretched out his arm and grabbed the back of his opponent's collar. With a little force, Cha Wu's body suddenly flew into the air. When he landed again, he was already outside the ring. According to the rules of the challenge, whoever fell out of the ring, regardless of whether they were injured or not, would lose. This is over? Everyone was instantly dumbfounded. Wasn't it over too quickly? It was true that Cha Wu was a weakling. The last time he took the initiative to challenge Lin Yi, he was cleanly defeated in a second. However, his opponent was, after all, Lin Yi, the #1 newcomer who had always been domineering. Everyone was already mentally prepared for this, so it was not strange for such a situation to occur. However, this time, it was just Xiao Ran, who had never displayed a strong performance. In just one face-to-face confrontation, he even used the most basic of martial arts techniques. The people below the ring could not even see through Xiao Ran's current strength. In the end, Xia Wu could not even let out a fart and was inexplicably thrown off the ring. A weakling was indeed a fucking weakling. He could not do anything at all. Xiao Ran from the 15th cave at the foot of the mountain challenges Xia Wu from the 14th cave at the foot of the mountain. Xiao Ran wins. The judge announced decisively. "Thank you for letting me win." Xiao Ran cupped his hands at Xia Wu, who was below the ring. Then he calmly walked off the ring. Damn, how did I get down? Until Xiao Ran left the ring, Xia Wu still had not reacted. How the fuck did I get down? Chapter 3794. Previously, everyone thought that Xiao Hongkai was lumber waste, but in the end she became an expert in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. She even fought with Meng Tong until both of them were injured. Now, this Xiao Ran easily defeated Xia Wu with just one move, and no one could see the depth of his strength. However, with Meng Jueguang's strength and eyesight, it was impossible that he couldn't see it. When Xiao Ran made his move just now, although he didn't show his full strength, Meng Jueguang could clearly feel that this ordinary-looking Xiao Ran was already an expert in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, just like lumber waste. Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, two experts in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, and Lin Yi, the freakishly strong #1 newcomer. In the past, he didn't think that it was anything special, but now that he thought about it, the lineup of these three people was absolutely luxurious. Although outside, including Lin Yi, the three of them could only be considered to be at the beginning stage, and they couldn't be compared to the word awesome, but in the welcome pavilion, it was a real dream lineup. Not only was it awesome, it was simply awesome. Even Meng Jueguang, the big brother in charge, who had the chance to be promoted to the position of the third master of the welcoming pavilion, couldn't help but feel a headache when he thought of this lineup. Originally, Lin Yi's strength wasn't that scary, but if everyone in the group started to become stronger, things would become very difficult. Not only would it be more difficult to deal with Lin Yi and the other two people together, but more importantly, once the three of them grew stronger, the situation in the future might be reversed. Then, Meng Jueguang, who had repeatedly gone against him, would really come to an end. He had to think of a way to nip this danger in the bud as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he didn't kill the snake, there would be endless trouble in the future. Meng Jueguang glanced at Lin Yi and Xiao Ran viciously. Then he looked at Meng Tong, who was seriously injured and lying on the side. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Lin Yi, Xiao Ran, and Xiao Hongkai. Although the lineup of these three people looked very strong in the welcome pavilion, under the protection of the newcomers, they were not as strong as they used to be. It could even be said that they were unsolvable, but it was not impossible to deal with them. At the very least, there was a flaw among the three of them, a fatal flaw. And this flaw was in Xiao Hongkai. Don't forget that Meng Tong was seriously injured and in a sorry state. Xiao Hongkai, who was injured along with him, was not in a good state either. It was impossible for her to recover within 10 days to half a month. Although he didn't know exactly how strong Xiao Ran was right now, and whether he had successfully built his foundation like Xiao Hongkai, but the current Xiao Hongkai. Without a doubt, he was the weakest link among Lin Yi's trio. Now was the perfect opportunity to eliminate him. However, Meng Jueguang was currently faced with a very awkward problem. He had too few strong subordinates. At the very least, there were too few chess pieces that could be used to deal with Lin Yi and the other two. From the looks of it, other than Meng Tong, he could not find anyone else. Li Jingming was not bad. But he had not built his foundation, unlike Meng Tong who had Foundation Elixir and Foundation Elixir. It was impossible for him to break through to Foundation Elixir in a short period of time with his own strength. And if Li Jingming could not do it, then the other newcomers who had come to rely on him would be even worse. If they wanted to deal with Lin Yi and the other two, no matter how they thought about it, this heavy responsibility could only fall on Meng Tong's shoulders. Meng Jueguang was the dignified eldest senior brother in charge of managing affairs. But the lineup of newcomers under him was far from being as solid and strong as Lin Yi's, a mere newcomer from the secular world. This kind of thing was more than just ironic, it was simply laughable. And now, the even more awkward problem was that he clearly knew where the flaws of Lin Yi and the other two were, but his only capable chess piece, Meng Tong, was also seriously injured. And because of the ranking of the cave abode, he had no way to take the initiative to attack Xiao Hongkai. He clearly knew the opponent's flaws, but he had no way to attack. This time, Meng Jueguang truly experienced what it meant to be a pain in the ass. This won't do. This is a rare opportunity. If I miss this opportunity, there won't be another one. I can't let a piece of trash like lumber waste continue to be arrogant. Meng Jueguang frowned as he pondered. He looked at Meng Tong at his feet and suddenly had an idea. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into a sinister smile. After Xiao Ran and Cha Wu, the rookie challenge competition finally went on the right track. Although there weren't any dazzling figures like the top 5 appearing, with the previous few matches as a prelude, the other newcomers also seemed to be on steroids. There were some exchanges, and it was quite exciting. After the third round of the Rookie Challenge competition ended and the newcomers dispersed, Lin Yi went to cave abode number 13 at the foot of the mountain to treat Xiao Hongcai's injuries. Although it wasn't life-threatening, Xiao Hongcai's injuries were serious. If he wasn't treated quickly, it would be easy for the illness to persist. "Boss, you really can heal people? I thought you made some elixir for me." Feeling the warmth from Lin Yi's palm, Xiao Hongcai couldn't help but be surprised. Not only him, but Xiao Ran and Ku Bai Shixiang, who weren't there, thought so as well. After all, it wasn't about quantity but quality. There was only one miracle Dan doctor, Zhang Liju. If everyone else did the same thing, then the end result would be nothing special. Not only would they not be able to do anything special, but it would also affect the most important part of their strength. It wasn't worth it. Even if I, your boss, am an elixir refiner, I don't know how to make any elixir. Besides, it takes time, right? How can it be as convenient as healing you directly? Besides, it's not a big deal. It's just that my practice is a little special. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Haha boss, that's easy for you to say. I've been practicing for so many years, and I've never seen anyone heal people like this. This time, I've seen it for myself. No wonder you're our boss, mighty and domineering. You're good at everything. Xiao Hongcai praised with a smile. This kid really knew how to flatter people. Lin Yi shook his head speechlessly and reminded, "Remember, don't tell anyone that I can heal people. It'll cause trouble." "That's for sure. Don't worry, boss. An innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. I know this very well. I won't tell anyone," Xiao Hongcai promised. Lin Yi nodded in relief and signaled Xiao Hongcai to focus on healing. Time passed, and after 6 hours, Lin Yi finally retracted his qi and ended the healing. Chapter 3795. After all, he had fought with Meng Tong, an expert of the same level, and both of them were injured. Moreover, Xiao Hongcai had just successfully built his foundation the day before. His strength was not stable, and he was naturally at a disadvantage in terms of martial skills. This result could already be considered as the weak winning against the strong. Therefore, strictly speaking, the injury that Xiao Hongcai had suffered was actually fatal. Although he could still stand up after the fight with Meng Tong, and could even open his mouth to speak, looking better than Meng Tong, who had fainted on the spot. In fact, this brat had been forcefully holding on until now. This kind of performance, although in the eyes of outsiders, from the point of view of healing, it was considered self-destruction. Instead, it was far more effective than Meng Tong directly fainting. To put it bluntly, this fellow, Xiao Hongcai, was a typical person who would rather suffer than save face. He clearly knew that his injuries were a mess, but he still stubbornly insisted on acting like it was nothing in front of outsiders. In fact, whoever was in pain would know. If it wasn't for Lin Yi's timely rescue, Xiao Hongcai probably wouldn't even be able to last until the next round of the challenge, let alone self-healing. He would have passed away due to his heavy injuries. However, with a boss like Lin Yi, this was not a problem. As long as it wasn't some kind of incurable illness, as long as he didn't die, Lin Yi would be able to save him. "Boss, this This quickly? Xiao Hongkai felt his whole body relaxed, and he couldn't help but be surprised. All right, feel carefully again and see if there are any other problems. Don't leave behind any hidden dangers. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Actually, Lin Yi had already examined him long ago. He just said that to make Xiao Hongkai feel at ease. Fuck. Boss, you're too awesome. How can you heal someone so quickly? For an injury like mine, if I were to find a divine doctor to treat me, including taking medicinal pills, it would take at least 10 days to half a month. When it came to you, boss, I was completely healed in a short 6 hours. This is too exaggerated. Xiao Hongkai couldn't help but be startled as he exclaimed. Only now did he realize that during the resistance assessment, how could Lin Yi recover so quickly after taking a full blow from someone at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm? In the past, he still felt that this matter was very strange. Now that he thought about it, there was no suspense at all. Even his own heavy injuries could be healed in a short 6 hours. If it was Boss Lin Yi, wouldn't it be even easier and more enjoyable? Boss Lin Yi's ability was more than unfathomable. If this was set out, it would simply shock the world. Seeing Xiao Hongcai's shocked expression, Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. He then urged, "Hurry up, don't talk nonsense. After you're done here, I still have to go back and transfer vital energy to the spiritual medicine seed." Oh. Xiao Hongkai nodded repeatedly and began to carefully examine the condition of his body. However, just as he started, he was instantly stunned and couldn't speak. At this moment, not only did all the fatal injuries in his body disappear without a trace, but he also discovered that the vital energy in his body was actually purer and stronger than before. One had to know that he had just successfully reached the Foundation establishment realm yesterday. Although he already had the strength of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, his realm was not stable. The flow of the vital energy in his body was also sometimes strong and sometimes weak. For the time being, he couldn't completely control it. But now, not only was his vital energy purer and stronger, but he could also control it perfectly with just a thought. Logically speaking, this kind of fire would require another half a month of hard training. Only after the initial stage of Foundation establishment was completely stabilized would it be possible. He had been on the brink of death, but after Lin Yi's treatment, not only did his injuries heal, but his strength had also increased by a huge amount. How is this healing? Even the legendary 4th-grade Great Revitalizing Pill doesn't have such an exaggerated and heaven-defying effect. Looking at Xiao Hongkai, she was dumbfounded. Lin Yi couldn't help but ask curiously, "What's wrong? Is there something wrong?" Unexpectedly, Xiao Hongkai swallowed a mouthful of saliva, turned her head and asked seriously, "Boss, don't tell me you're the reincarnation of some deity? Immortal mighty figure? Reincarnation?" Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Although there were powerful cultivators in this world who could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, there had never been a so-called immortal mighty figure. Myths and legends and the real world of cultivation were two completely different concepts. "Oh, I get it. Boss, you're the reincarnation of an immortal mighty figure. You can't let others know, right? Don't worry, I'll definitely keep my mouth shut," Xiao Hongkai repeatedly promised. Apart from this reason, with his meager knowledge, he really couldn't imagine how an ordinary cultivator in the secular world could have such heaven-defying abilities as Lin Yi. It didn't make sense at all. Lin Yi could only roll his eyes at Xiao Hongcai's performance and wave his hand. "I can tell that you're fine just by looking at you. I'll be leaving first. You need to get used to your condition these few days. There's a tough battle waiting for you in the next round. Don't get careless." Xiao Hongkai nodded. After saying that, Lin Yi didn't stay for long. He turned around and left the cave. It just so happened that it was time for him to instill vital energy into the spiritual medicine seed every day. It was a matter of great importance and couldn't be easily delayed. "Don't worry, boss. I'll teach that scum a good lesson." Xiao Hongkai changed his cheeky face and said to Lin Yi's back in a deep voice. The tough battle that Lin Yi mentioned was naturally the opponent Meng Tong. This was something that Xiao Hongkai was well aware of. Although it was impossible for Meng Tong to receive treatment from Boss Lin, Meng Jueguang, as the big senior brother in charge, would definitely think of a way to get all kinds of healing elixirs to help him recover before the next round of battle. There was nothing to doubt about this. Even if Meng Jueguang didn't have the financial resources, don't forget that behind them stood Su Lingchong, the young master with a profound background. In the eyes of others, a fourth-grade Great Recover pill was something that could only be encountered by luck. But for young Master Su, it was obviously not a problem. It was obviously a battle where both sides were injured, but Hu Yunfeng judged that he was the loser and Meng Tong was the winner. With Qiao Hongsai's nature of abhorring evil, he obviously couldn't endure this resentment. Qiao Hongkai wouldn't have been so stupid as to let himself be trampled on if he hadn't recovered from his injuries. No matter how hot-tempered Qiao Hongkai was, he wouldn't be so stupid as to let someone step on him while he was injured, but now that Lin Yi had healed him, his condition was even better than before. He wouldn't be Qiao Hongkai if he didn't get his revenge now. Chapter 3796. Although Qiao Hongkai seemed a little reckless, she was not. 3 days passed in a flash, and the fourth round of the newcomer challenge began as scheduled. After the first 3 rounds, especially the third round, where Qiao Hongkai and Meng Tong fought fiercely, the newcomer challenge had clearly entered a white-hot stage. No newcomer would hide. As long as there was the slightest chance, they would definitely pounce out like a hungry wolf to snatch points. It was exciting to watch. However, on the side of Blue Cloud Pavilion, the biggest focus was still on the top 5. To be precise, it was on Meng Tong and Qiao Hongkai. These two had just fought to the death in the last round. In the previous round, Meng Tong and Qiao Hongkai had both been heavily injured. If it had been any other ordinary newcomer present, with such a brutal injury, even if they were lucky enough to survive, they would probably not be able to get up for at least 10 days to half a month. However, what made the newcomers amazed was that after 3 days of recuperation, whether it was Meng Tong or Qiao Hongkai, they were able to move freely like normal people. However, the two of them still looked a little weak, as if they had not fully recovered from their injuries. With the two of them in such a weak state, if it wasn't for the fact that their cave-dwelling rankings were low, the other newcomers might have thought of taking advantage of them. After all, so what if they were early-stage foundation establishment experts? At this time, it was obvious that they were like tigers being bullied by dogs. A sick tiger was not as good as a cat. As the newcomers waited with different thoughts in their minds, the referee finally arrived. The fourth round of the newcomer challenge had officially begun. Qiao Hongkai and Lin Yi looked at each other. Then, under everyone's astonished gaze, they slowly walked onto the stage and pointed at Meng Tong. "Come on, great newcomer Meng. You were lucky enough to escape in the last round. Let's continue today. Who will have the last laugh?" Qiao Hongsai's challenge to Meng Tong was not unexpected at all. After all, anyone who was treated so unfairly by Qiao Hongkai would not be able to hold back their anger. Naturally, it was better to vent this anger as soon as possible. Otherwise, they would not be able to think clearly. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, they listened to Qiao Hongsai's declaration of challenge. Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong looked at each other and could not help but laugh sinisterly. "I'm not afraid of you challenging me. I'm afraid that you won't dare to challenge me." What none of the rookies present expected was that Meng Tong's weak appearance was just an act for Qiao Hongkai to see. It was to lure him into challenging him. In fact, 2 days ago, because he had consumed a grade 4 Great Recovery pill given by Meng Jueguang, Meng Tong had already recovered from his injuries. After 2 days of recuperation, his condition could be said to be at his peak. And the reason why Meng Jueguang was willing to spend so much on Meng Tong was to deal with Qiao Hongkai. Since he had already realized that Lin Yi and company were gradually becoming too big for them to handle, Meng Jueguang naturally would not allow them to continue growing. As their archenemy, Meng Jueguang naturally would not allow them to continue growing. Now that Qiao Hongkai had yet to recover from his injuries, he was the weakest link. Taking advantage of his weakness, Meng Jueguang would definitely not be soft-hearted. However, even if he could obtain a grade 4 Great Recovery pill, allowing Meng Tong to recover in a day, there was one thing that could not be changed. That was that Qiao Hongkai was in cave abode number 13. Meng Tong was in cave abode number 12. His ranking was higher than Qiao Hongsai's, which meant that he did not have the right to initiate a challenge. This meant that whether or not he wanted to challenge, and when he wanted to challenge, would be decided by Xiao Hongkai. Meng Tong did not have any right to speak. In order to grasp the perfect opportunity when Xiao Hongkai had yet to recover from his injuries, Meng Jueguang had made Meng Tong pretend to be weak to lure Xiao Hongkai into taking the bait. With Xiao Hongkai's straightforward and fiery personality, coupled with the unfair treatment he received in the previous round, he would definitely be filled with resentment. If he were to pretend to be weak at this time, as long as he could recover even a little bit of his strength, he would definitely not swallow it. The result proved that Meng Jueguang's plan was successful. Just like what he and Meng Tong had hoped for, Xiao Hongkai, this reckless idiot, could not wait to jump out and die. This time, we must not leave him alive. Before going on stage, Meng Jueguang whispered to Meng Tong. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Once he missed this perfect opportunity, it would be very difficult to kill this trash Xiao in the future. After all, Lumber Waste was an expert in the early stage of foundation building. If he were to fight with Meng Tong at his peak, even if Meng Tong had the advantage in martial arts, it would be very difficult for him to kill his opponent. Ninth cousin, don't worry. Lumber Waste will not live to see the day. Meng Tong grinned without batting an eyelid. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, but at the same time, there was also a trace of hidden disdain. After all, Lin Yi was the opponent that Meng Tong had always wanted to step on. Lumber Waste was just a minion under Lin. As the self-proclaimed leader of the new generation of Blue Cloud Pavilion, if he had to fight a minion like Lumber Waste for 2 consecutive rounds, how would he have the face to compete with Lin Yi in the future? Under everyone's gaze, Meng Tong deliberately pretended to be weak as he walked into the ring with a cold smile. Originally, with his arrogant style, he would not put in so much effort to deal with a guy like Lumber Waste. Not only was it not his style, but it was also embarrassing. Even if he were to pretend, he could remove his disguise the moment Xiao Hongkai took the initiative to challenge him. After all, his opponent had already taken the bait and he had achieved his goal. However, today, Meng Tong acted like a completely different person. Not only did he get Xiao Hongkai to take the bait, he even continued to pretend when he was in the ring. He wanted to take advantage of Xiao Hongkai and end all troubles once and for all. After suffering, this kid has matured a lot. Meng Jueguang could not help but feel gratified. Meng Tong was the right-hand man that he relied on the most. Although his loyalty and strength were not bad, the most fatal problem was that he never used his brain. In the long run, he would at most be a new fighter. He was far from being able to take charge. But now, this guy was finally enlightened. This was a rare and unexpected gain. In Meng Jueguang's calculations, the financial resources of Lin Yi's group obviously could not be compared to his, who had young Master Su as his backing. Chapter 3797. But even so, Meng Tong still chose to continue to feign weakness and numb his opponent, waiting for an opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Not to mention whether his acting was good or not, just his scheming was hard to come by. Walking to the ring, Meng Tong stared at Xiao Hongkai and sneered, "I was tricked by you in the last round, which was why I was barely able to force you into a lose-lose situation. Today, I won't be so lucky. Even if I haven't fully recovered from my injuries, killing you is as easy as killing a chicken." Unexpectedly, Xiao Hongkai curled her lips indifferently and said, "Are these your last words, great newcomer Meng? It sounds like you haven't made any arrangements for your funeral." Meng Tong was speechless. After being stunned for a moment, he gritted his teeth and snorted coldly, sharp-tongued. "You don't know the meaning of death." Seeing that both sides were ready, the referee immediately announced, the first match of the 4th round of the Blue Cloud Pavilion Newcomer Challenge. Abode 13 Xiao Hongkai challenges Abode 12 Meng Tong. Begin. As soon as he finished speaking, Meng Tong's figure shot out like an arrow from a bow. He threw away his weak disguise, which had yet to recover from his injuries, towards Xiao Hongkai. Without hesitation, he used his strongest move, the Thousand Legs 21 style. He was prepared to cut through the Gordian knot. Any disguise could not be delayed for too long. As he achieved the effect of confusing his opponent, He had to immediately tear off his disguise and take the opportunity to deliver a fatal blow. Otherwise, if it dragged on for too long, he would reveal his flaws. This was the strategy that Meng Jueguang had taught him. According to common sense, tearing off his disguise and launching an all-out attack right from the start was enough to catch his opponent off guard. If his opponent was injured, it would be easy to kill him in one blow. In order to pursue results, Meng Tong did not even have the intention to use the Thousand Legs Phantom Shadow to test the waters. Instead, he attacked with all his might right from the start. However, what surprised Meng Tong and Meng Jueguang was that Meng Tong's sudden attack, which tore off his disguise, was forcefully blocked by Qiao Hongsai's 21st style of cold iron palm. Fuck. You trash, how dare you pretend to be injured to scare me? Despicable and shameless. Feeling the sharp pain from his leg, Meng Tong's face instantly turned green. He had always thought that she was like Qiao Hongkai. It was impossible for her to get a rare 4th grade recover pill. It was impossible for her to recover in just 3 days. Therefore, when he saw that Qiao Hongsai's footsteps were weak, he had the first impression that this guy was really injured. From the beginning to the end, neither Meng Tong nor Meng Jueguang had any doubts. They had never thought that this trash would have the same idea as Meng Tong. Otherwise, how could a mere injured person make such a powerful cold iron palm? Moreover, it was so overbearing that it could hit back Meng Tong's Thousand Legs 21st style. In order to trick people, he did not hesitate to throw in a 4th grade recover pill. But this time, he did not hit the goose, but was pecked in the eye first. In the audience, Meng Jueguang could not help but blush. In his usual understanding, Lumber Waist was obviously the same as Meng Tong. They both had a straightforward temper. How did he suddenly become so insidious? What made him even more puzzled was that Qiao Hongkai was obviously seriously injured before. But in just 3 days, he was now as lively as Meng Tong, who had taken a 4th grade recover pill. How the hell did he do it? With the meager resources of Lin Yi's group, it was impossible for them to take out such a rare 4th grade recover pill. Could it be Lu Bianren? Thinking about it, only Lu Bianren, the 3rd Pavilion Master, had the ability to get a 4th grade recover pill. Damn it, wait until I become the 3rd Pavilion Master, see how I will deal with you, meddlesome old thing. While Meng Jueguang was holding a grudge against Lu Bianren, Qiao Hongkai on the stage looked at Meng Tong and sneered, "Same to you. We are all the same. How dare you say that I am despicable?" Meng Tong was speechless. Even he himself was pretending, but Qiao Hongkai had the same idea. What was so strange about giving him a taste of his own medicine? After a while, Meng Tong snorted coldly. "Well, since it has been exposed, there is no need to continue hiding. I will use my strength to trample you to death. I will let you see how big the gap between us is." Qiao Hongkai suddenly laughed. "You are talking about being upright when your conspiracy has been exposed. Great newcomer Meng, did you learn your shamelessness from one of your cousins?" As soon as he said that, the audience couldn't help but laugh. The one of my cousins that Qiao Hongkai was talking about was Meng Jueguang. He was indirectly scolding Meng Jueguang for being shameless. Hearing this, Meng Jueguang's face turned black. He clearly knew that Trash Qiao, this bastard, was beating around the bush and scolding him, but he couldn't fight back. After all, Trash Qiao was only talking about Meng Tong's certain cousin, and not his 9th cousin. If he were to speak at this time, wouldn't he be taking the initiative to take the initiative and slap his own face? Fortunately, the awkwardness didn't last long. On the stage, Meng Tong had already used his actions to fight back for him. Without saying anything, he directly turned into thousands of leg shadows and pounced on Qiao Hongkai. Because of the last round, both Meng Tong and Qiao Hongkai had a deep understanding of each other's strength. It was clear at a glance where the other was strong and where the other was weak. There was nothing they could hide from each other. As the saying goes, the one who understands you the most is your enemy. So from this point of view, Meng Tong's so-called upright was somewhat reasonable. Since they knew each other like the back of their hand, there was no place for them to hide, and there was no chance for them to trick each other. The only choice for both sides was to use their strongest strength and fight to the death again. The following battle between the two once again showed everyone what cruelty and tragedy was. Just as Xiao Hongkai was hit by the Thousand Legs 21 style, Meng Tong immediately had to follow up with the Cold Iron Palm 21 style. Coughing up blood was considered a light punishment. After a few exchanges, the final situation was exactly the same as the previous round. After a few exchanges, both sides were once again sprawled on the ground, unable to move. This time, the injuries they suffered were even more severe than the previous round. It was completely wishful thinking for them to stand up again. The fact that they were able to hold their breath and not die was already a rare feat for them to have such strong willpower. Looking at this seemingly familiar scene, everyone present was instantly dumbfounded. All of them were flabbergasted. Aren't the strength of these two people a little too similar? They've fought twice in a row, and both of them were actually injured? Chapter 3798. After a moment of stalemate, Meng Jueguang could only helplessly invite the pavilion master over again. Although he had learned from the previous mistakes, this was still outside the rules. The final verdict could only be decided by Hu Yunfeng. Others, including the judges, did not have this authority, and they could not afford to take this risk. It's these two again? Hu Yunfeng heard the news and came over. Looking at Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong, he was speechless. He looked at Meng Jueguang, but this time, there was no room for private discussion with Meng Jueguang. After all, the same situation had happened in the previous round. In order to maintain the glorious image of fairness, he, as the pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion, could only follow the previous round's rules. Otherwise, if he changed the rules, he would be slapping his own face in the next round. Not only would this matter become a joke, but it would also be fermented by people with ulterior motives. When the time comes, who knows how much of a storm it would stir up. Although Meng Jueguang had now joined young Master Su's side, and Hu Yunfeng indeed had the intention to rope him in, the premise was that it could not affect his own future. Otherwise, when it concerned his own future, not to mention a mere Meng Jueguang, he might not even give face to young Master Su. Clearing his throat, Hu Yunfeng then announced, although both sides were injured, according to the precedent of the previous round's winner, I hereby announce that the winner of this challenge is Xiao Hongkai from the 13th cave at the foot of the mountain. Hearing this, Meng Jueguang's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. He did not hesitate to throw a 4th-grade recover pill on Meng Tong. In the end, not only did he not kill Xiao Hongkai, but he was also given a taste of his own medicine by the other party. He forcibly snatched back 4 points and became the winner. This kind of trivial matter, just thinking about it already made Meng Jueguang so aggrieved that he almost vomited a mouthful of old blood. After all, this duel wasn't just between Meng Tong and Xiao Hongkai. Both of them represented Meng Jueguang and Lin. Meng Tong was the most capable newcomer under Meng Jueguang, but he had lost to a mere minion under Lin. This made Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother, lose face. However, the matter was already settled. No matter how aggrieved Meng Jueguang was, he did not dare to raise any objection to Hu Yunfeng's words in public. After all, Hu Yunfeng was also under young Master Su's faction. They both had the same backer, and their status and strength were far above him. Moreover, Hu Yunfeng was his direct superior. It was clear who listened to whom. If Meng Jueguang could not even understand this point, he would not have received young Master Su's recognition. It was the same Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong, and both were equally injured. In the previous round, Hu Yunfeng was unscrupulous enough to judge Meng Tong as the winner. In the end, it had only been 3 days, and he was immediately met with retribution. This situation was really ironic. In the previous round, when Xiao Hongkai was judged to have lost, everyone at the scene felt a little sad. But this round, when the same thing happened to Meng Tong, not only did the crowd not feel that it was unfair, but they also felt that this slap in the face was very satisfying. Don't forget, these newcomers were already under Meng Jueguang's command in name. They were in the same camp as Meng Tong. However, this self-proclaimed leader of the newcomers, Meng Tong's character was really too bad. His relations with others were just too bad. Not only did Li Jingming, who was repeatedly tricked by him, even the other newcomers did not buy it. If young Master Meng knew of this result, It was really unknown how he would feel. However, this situation was not entirely bad for Meng Tong. After all, at the same time that he had 4 points deducted, his cave ranking had also dropped back to cave number 13 at the foot of the mountain, falling behind Xiao Hongkai and regaining the initiative. And more importantly, although he had fallen into the awkward situation of being seriously injured again, and there was still Xiao Ran, Lin Yi's right-hand man behind him, once he was challenged, he would not be able to fight back at all. However, he had already been challenged by Xiao Hongkai once today. According to the rules of the challenge, he had the right to reject any subsequent challenges. In other words, even if Xiao Ran wanted to hit him when he was down, at least he would not have the chance to do so in this round. This was a rare piece of good news. With an experienced master like Meng Jueguang, Xiao Ran's strength in the early stage of foundation establishment had already been seen through when he fought against Cha Wu in the last round. According to the previous strength of the perfect stage of heaven stage, even if they were both in the early stage of foundation establishment, Xiao Ran's real combat power was probably above Xiao Hongkai. This could be seen from the previous round when Xiao Ran threw Cha Wu out of the ring without any effort. If it was Xiao Hongkai who had also just succeeded in foundation establishment, or even Meng Tong who had been in foundation establishment for a period of time, they would not be able to do it as smoothly and easily as him. Lumber Waist alone had already fought with Meng Tong in 2 rounds consecutively and both sides suffered. If there was an even stronger Xiao Ran, then whether it was Meng Tong who bore the brunt of the attack or Meng Jueguang who stood behind the scenes, they would only be at a disadvantage. The most ironic thing was that these 2 people were only Lin Yi's underlings. Lin Yi did not even need to make a move himself. Just these 2 underlings were enough to force Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong into a mess. The dignified senior brother who was in charge of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion and the future 3rd Pavilion Master of the Welcome Pavilion was in a terrible situation because of the underlings of a newcomer in the secular world. How could they endure this? Although it could be said that Meng Tong had escaped this round due to the rules of the challenge, he was still helpless about what to do in the next round. Xiao Hongkai was in front of him and Xiao Ran was behind him. Meng Tong did not dare to move at all when he was sandwiched by these 2 people. If he continued to fight, he would either continue to fight with Xiao Hongkai or skip Xiao Hongkai and directly find a newcomer with a higher ranking in the cave abode to plunder more points. However, no matter what the situation was, after the challenge, either Xiao Hongkai or Xiao Ran would definitely take advantage of the situation. If he stayed in the cave abode number 13 at the foot of the mountain, then Xiao Hongkai would not have the qualifications to take the initiative to challenge him. However, don't forget that Xiao Ran was blocking his way. When that time came, he would have to continue to fight with others and the challenge points he could get in the end would be pitiful. Now in this challenge round, this idiot Lin Yi was trapped in his own trap. It was not easy for him to give Meng Tong a chance to overtake his points. If he continued to be entangled with these 2 underlings of Lin Yi, he would miss this golden opportunity. Chapter 3799. At the end of the day, the biggest problem that Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong faced now was that Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, who were originally just small fries under Lin Yi, had suddenly and inexplicably succeeded in building their foundations and became early-stage foundation building experts in one fell swoop. Originally, Lin Yi alone was enough to make them scratch their heads, but now, they realized that the situation had suddenly taken a turn for the worse. Not only could Meng Tong not defeat Lin Yi, he might not even be able to defeat any of Lin Yi's underlings. How could they continue to play? Although Meng Jueguang had many newcomers under him, among the 12 newcomers, only Meng Tong was in the early stage of foundation building. On the other hand, although there were only 3 people in Lin Yi's group, all of them had succeeded in building their foundations. It was obvious who was strong and who was weak at a glance. Faced with such a huge disparity in strength, no matter how astute Meng Jueguang was, it was useless. In the face of absolute strength, all the so-called plots and tricks were nothing but fleeting clouds. At this moment, Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother who was always scheming and never showed his emotions on his face, could not help but suddenly feel a little flustered. Because he realized that if things continued like this, even if he had young Master Su's support and successfully sat on the position of Welcome Pavilion's 3rd pavilion head, he might not be able to do anything to Lin Yi and his group in the future. The performance of Lin Yi and his group of 3 was too eye-catching. Once they attracted the attention of the higher-ups of Blue Cloud Pavilion, it would be very difficult for him to obstruct them. If he was not careful, he would get into trouble instead, and it was not impossible for him to fail miserably in an easy task. Meng Jueguang thought about it and finally came up with the only effective solution, which was to find a way to upgrade Meng Tong to another level as soon as possible, so that he could once again have an overwhelming advantage over Xiao Ran, Xiao Hongkai, and even Lin. Only then could he regain control of the situation. No matter how disrespectful Lin Yi and the others were to him, they were still rookies of Blue Cloud Pavilion who were heavily protected. If he didn't want to take the risk and rely on outsiders, the only way to deal with them was to support an even stronger rookie from Blue Cloud Pavilion to crush them. And this person could only be Meng Tong. Other newcomers such as Li Jingming. After all, he was only at Heaven's Stage Great Circle. Wanting to support him to a height that could crush Lin Yi and his group was obviously unrealistic. Furthermore, his loyalty was not as reliable as Meng Tong's. However, Meng Tong had just advanced to foundation building early stage not long ago, and he relied on the foundation building pill and foundation building liquid to successfully build his foundation. Wanting to raise him to another level in a short period of time, this difficulty could be imagined. Normal methods were definitely out of the question. The only way was to use medicinal pills, and it couldn't be ordinary medicinal pills that could assist in cultivation. Moreover, it had to be rare medicinal pills that could forcefully increase one's level, and it had to be the kind of medicinal pills that could be used to forcibly increase one's level. Other medicinal pills like the foundation breaking pill that were sought after by foundation building experts were useless. Unfortunately, if Meng Jueguang had this kind of medicinal pill in his hands, he would have long given it to himself. How could he have kept it until today? However, even if Meng Jueguang didn't have it in his hands, it didn't mean that he definitely couldn't get it. Don't forget that behind him stood Su Lingchong, a great backer. With young Master Su's unfathomable background and influence, if he really had the heart to get this type of medicinal pill, it shouldn't be difficult. After all, raising Meng Tong's strength was to deal with Lin Yi. Moreover, although young Master Su didn't put Meng Tong in his eyes, he was still considered a subordinate of his subordinate. But no matter what, he was still his subordinate's subordinate. Finding a way to raise Meng Tong's strength was killing 2 birds with 1 stone for young Master Su. After secretly making up his mind, Meng Jueguang's heart felt a little more at ease. However, the gaze he looked at Lin Yi and the others with was unconsciously more gloomy and vicious than before. I'll let you be arrogant for now, and wait until I've convinced young Master Su. Then I'll deal with you. Feeling Meng Jueguang's cold gaze, Lin Yi frowned slightly and said, "Could it be that Meng Jueguang is up to something again?" As senior brother Ku Chong had already escorted Xiao Hongkai back to the cave dwelling to recuperate, Lin Yi now only had Xiao Ran by his side. After all, with the powerful strength that Xiao Hongkai had displayed now, and with Xiao Ran behind him to protect him, newcomers like Cha Wu wouldn't dare to provoke him. Therefore, even if he hadn't been challenged in this round, he could be sure that no one would come to challenge him. So, he simply returned to the cave dwelling to recuperate. Of course, if Meng Tong recovered in a short period of time, there was a possibility that he would directly launch a battle of revenge against Xiao Hongkai. Unfortunately, this was unrealistic. With his current injuries, even if he consumed a level 4 recover pill, it would still take him a day to fully recover. Hearing Lin Yi's suspicions, Xiao Ran couldn't help but laugh. "Boss, you're thinking too much. In this situation, we have 3 early-stage foundation establishment experts, and he only has 1 subordinate, Meng Tong. This gap is too big. No matter how he plans, it's already useless." This was the truth. With Meng Jueguang's strength, he could deal with Lin Yi and the others, but he couldn't do it himself. Moreover, he only had 1 powerful chess piece, Meng Tong. Using him to deal with Lin Yi and the others was simply unrealistic. After all, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. Let's hope this guy will know his place. Lin Yi nodded. If Meng Jueguang could recognize the reality and give up, then there wouldn't be so many troubles, and it would be convenient for him to focus on improving his strength in the future. Pausing, Lin Yi changed the topic and asked, "What's your plan? This round, are you going to be a bystander, or are you going to directly challenge for points?" Previously, Xiao Ran had maintained the status of bringing up the rear, purposely controlling the ranking of the cave behind Meng Tong, in order to ensure double insurance. This way, even if Xiao Hongkai couldn't deal with Meng Tong, he could still take advantage of the situation to make up for it. At the same time, he could protect Xiao Hongkai, who was ranked at the top of the cave, and at the same time, he could effectively restrict Meng Tong. However, after 2 rounds of losses on both sides, it had proven that Xiao Hongkai had the ability and confidence to fight against Meng Tong. Therefore, Xiao Ran's double insurance was unnecessary and unnecessary. Instead of wasting time with Meng Tong, it was better to directly challenge for points. This way, it would be more reliable. However, Xiao Ran answered with a smile, "I will wait for another round. If I don't step on Meng Tong and let him go so easily, I will feel sorry for myself and Hongkai." Based on the current ranking, Meng Tong's abode was the 13th abode at the foot of the mountain, while Xiao Ran's abode was the 14th abode at the foot of the mountain. Both of them happened to be right behind Meng Tong, and with the fact that they were enemies, even a kind person like Xiao Ran wouldn't let go of such an opportunity. Chapter 3800. Honest people also had a temper. Now that the tables had turned, how could Xiao Ran let Meng Tong go so easily? Therefore, even if he had to wait one more round, he wouldn't hesitate. Lin Yi heard this and laughed. "That's good too. I also want to see if our senior Meng can get another 4th realm Great Recover pill for Meng Tong. When that happens, Xiao Ran, you can go and cripple him. That scene will be very interesting." With Li Jingming, the inside man, the fact that Meng Tong consumed a 4th realm Great Recover pill couldn't be hidden from Lin Yi's eyes and ears. During the resistance assessment, Meng Tong had already used a 4th realm Great Recover pill. This time, to attack Xiao Hongkai, he used another one. If he used another one and it didn't have the same effect, then Meng Jueguang would probably cry. After all, a 4th realm Great Recover pill was a very rare life-saving pill. It was all spiritual jades. With Meng Jueguang's own foundation, being able to get one was already his limit. The previous one was sponsored by young master Su Lingchong. 2 of them smashed onto Meng Tong's body consecutively and they didn't have any effect. This itself already made Meng Jueguang want to cry. If he used another one and it didn't have any effect, then he would probably die from anger. 3 4th realm Great Recover pills. Many cultivators have never seen so many healing pills in their entire lives. Of course, it was still unknown whether Meng Jueguang could get a 3rd one for Meng Tong. With the previous 2 examples, the possibility was really not high. After the highlight of the fight between Xiao Hongkai and Meng Tong, the challenge returned to normal. The next development was slightly different from the previous round. It was finally the turn of another top 5 newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion, Li Jingming. After 3 rounds of waiting, he finally got the chance to be challenged. Li Jingming couldn't help but sigh. However, what really made him sigh wasn't because his ranking in the cave was too high. He didn't have the chance to fight and couldn't take the initiative to get challenge points from other newcomers. Instead, it was because he had to watch Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai succeed in breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm. Looking at the so-called top 5 of Blue Cloud Pavilion, the other 4 had all succeeded in breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm. And Lin Yi was already a hidden peak early-stage Foundation Establishment realm expert. Li Jingming was the only one left. He was still struggling at Heaven Stage Great Perfection, far from breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm. This awkward situation was really painful. Looking at the methods the other 4 used to break through to the Foundation Establishment realm, Lin Yi didn't need to be mentioned. Meng Tong took a Foundation Establishment pill and a Foundation Establishment liquid. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai each took a Foundation Establishment pill. However, Li Jingming didn't even get the most basic Foundation Establishment pill. Otherwise, as long as he could get a Foundation Establishment pill, with his talent, Li Jingming would have enough confidence to break through to the Foundation Establishment realm. He had enough confidence to succeed in breaking through to the Foundation Establishment realm like Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. Unfortunately, he didn't have anything. At the end of the day, The biggest problem was that he latched onto the wrong thigh, Meng Jueguang. Although he'd switched sides in the middle, secretly becoming a spy under Lin Yi's command, he still had to pay the price for his mistake. At first, he thought that by joining Meng Jueguang, the eldest senior brother in charge, he would have the opportunity to fight for more cultivation resources. Even if he couldn't eat a lot of meat, he should at least be able to drink a few mouthfuls of meat soup. Now that he thought about it, Li Jingming was really blind. From the beginning to the end, not only did he not get any decent benefits, he was also repeatedly bullied by Meng Tong, that bastard. If his eyes were a little brighter back then and joined Lin Yi, he might have already succeeded in breaking through to the Foundation establishment realm. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. He could only taste the bitter fruit he sowed. Even if it was blood and tears, right now, Li Jingming could only silently endure it. He believed that as long as he played a good role as Lin Yi's spy, in the future, Lin Yi, the boss, would definitely not treat him badly. But then again, although Li Jingming had not succeeded in breaking through to the Foundation establishment realm and was overshadowed by the other top 5, with his strength, he still had enough of an advantage against the other newcomers of Blue Cloud Pavilion. The newcomer who challenged him was now in the 3rd cave at the foot of the mountain. In the previous rounds, he had won 2 battles and fought his way up from the 5th cave at the foot of the mountain. It should be said that his strength was quite good. However, in this battle against Li Jingming, the gap was immediately reflected. From the beginning to the end, he was suppressed in every way. After a short period of 3 lights, he was blasted out of the ring. This battle was lost by Li Jingming's hands. It could be said that it was a clean loss, and he was sincerely convinced. Seeing Li Jingming's performance, the eyes of Lin Yi, who was watching the battle below the ring, suddenly lit up. He couldn't help but secretly think that it was time to find an opportunity to help Li Jingming get some benefits. Speaking of which, although Li Jingming had not been under his command for a long time, during this time as a spy, he was absolutely diligent and had secretly provided a lot of valuable information. Even if Lin Yi had planted Zhong Pingliang as a spy long ago, Zhong Pingliang was still in the Soaring Pavilion after all. At most, he could keep an eye on Kong Mingming, but he couldn't keep an eye on Meng Jueguang all the time. And right now, for Lin Yi, the biggest and most direct enemy was Meng Jueguang. During this period of time, Lin Yi was able to repeatedly see through Meng Jueguang's schemes in advance, and then deal with them calmly, causing the opponent to go for wool and come home shorn. In this, Li Jingming could be said to be the greatest credit. Kindness must be rewarded, and mistakes must be punished. Combining kindness and power was the best way to control subordinates. So, it was necessary for Lin Yi to help Li Jingming get some benefits. Otherwise, if this dragged on, this little brother of his would not be able to taste the sweetness. Who knew when he would become disloyal, and that would be a great loss. In Lin Yi's eyes, Li Jingming's development potential was far above Qiao Hongcai's and even exceeded Xiao Ran's. Once he was cultivated well, he would definitely be a seedling that could take charge of an area in the future. For such a talent, as long as he could guarantee his loyalty, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't let him go to waste. At the end of the day, in the world of cultivation, the strong were always respected. The strong here did not just refer to strength, but more importantly, influence. No matter how strong one was, he couldn't achieve anything by himself. Only when his subordinates became strong together could he have a foothold in this cruel competition on Heavenly Island. Only then could he have enough right to speak and pave the way for what he wanted to do in the future. Chapter 3801. But if he were to see that Lin Yi's group was full of masters, then when Lin Yi went to see Zhang Liju with the identity of a big boss, he'd be able to ask him to do him a favor and save people. That'd be a lot easier. It was just that it was still wishful thinking to reach this level at the moment. But there was one thing that couldn't be wrong. Even if Lin Yi's strength didn't change, having a bunch of weak lackeys and a bunch of strong lackeys was 2 completely different things. This was something that Meng Jueguang had shown clearly. Back when he was in the common world, he was already invincible, and the importance of a strong follower wasn't that obvious. But now that he was in the Sky-class island, where Foundation practitioners were everywhere, he had to start from scratch. The meaning was completely different. Sky-class island, this name wasn't bad at all. Sky class was the beginning of everything. Sky class was basically the most common existence. And so, with just Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, it wasn't enough. Li Jingming was a seed with potential, and as long as he could guarantee his loyalty, Lin Yi wouldn't be stingy with his benefits. Even if he made a recovery pill just for him, it wouldn't be impossible. After the 4th round of the competition ended, Lin Yi went back to treat Xiao Hongcai's injuries. After that, he infused qi into the 80 seeds in the jade space as usual. Other than the 80 seeds showing no signs of germination, everything went on as usual. However, he received a letter unexpectedly. There was no name on the letter, but the person who wrote it was Lin Yi, who was sure that it was his little sister whom he hadn't seen for a while, Shangguan Lena. The reason why he knew that it was Shangguan Lena was because of the person who sent the letter to Lin Yi. It was Lena's exclusive pet with intelligence, little curly bear. Shangguan Lena was the only granddaughter of Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Shanghai Tianhua. She was the well-deserved little princess of the 3 pavilions. Furthermore, his every move was being watched by everyone. At most, he would sneak out to play when no one was paying attention. Therefore, even if there was something important, he would not be able to do it. Shangguan Lena could not come to Lin Yi directly. That would be too conspicuous, and it would be easy for others to gossip. Moreover, it would also expose the pretense that she and Lin Yi deliberately pretended. This made Su Lingchong and the others suspicious. At this time, she could only place her hopes on the little curly bear. When there was no one around, he would send her a message. The little curly bear, who had always been playful, was obviously looking forward to this kind of mission. One had to know that Lin Yi was an absolute temptation to it, and it had accidentally come to Lin Yi's cave abode once before. He was quite familiar with it. However, even if the little curly bear's spiritual intelligence was super high, it would never have thought that Lin Yi had now changed his cave abode. In order to avoid people's attention, this guy came over when the sky was getting dark. He sneakily went to touch the enchantment of the 14th cave abode at the foot of the mountain. After waiting outside for a moment, it found that the person who came out was not Lin Yi at all. The little curly bear was suddenly dumbfounded. When it reacted, it was so scared that it ran away. Fortunately, the person who lived in the 14th cave abode at the foot of the mountain was not someone else, but Xiao Ran, who was with Lin Yi. Combined with the behavior of the little curly bear sticking to Lin Yi in the back mountain hall and refused to come down, Xiao Ran quickly realized that this little guy probably came to find his boss. Without saying anything, he immediately ran to the first cave abode at the foot of the mountain to find Lin. Only then did he chase the little curly bear back halfway. Fortunately, the little guy's legs were short and could not run fast. Otherwise, it would have caused a lot of trouble if he let it run away in a panic now that it was already dark. Accompanying Lin Yi to chase the little curly bear back, looking at the little guy riding on Lin Yi's neck intimately, Xiao Ran couldn't help but feel strange. Boss, didn't you say that the owner of this little guy doesn't get along with you? What happened to it? Miss Shangguan hated Lin. Under the influence of some people, this was almost a well-known thing in the Welcome Pavilion. Moreover, judging from the previous Shanghai laner's behavior of watching from the sidelines, it seemed that she really did not have a good impression of Lin Yi, which further confirmed the rumor. Lin Yi smiled slightly and said, "This is a kind of tacit understanding that I deliberately pretended to have with its owner to numb that young Master Su. Xiao Ran, it's good that you know this, but don't tell others." "Boss, don't worry, I understand." Xiao Ran suddenly understood, and then he was in awe. His boss Lin Yi could even make friends with such a high and noble person like Miss Shangguan, and could even make her take the initiative to act with him. He was really unfathomable. Taking the little curly bear back to his current #1 cave house at the foot of the mountain, the little guy finally took out a small envelope from his little shorts. It could be seen that the envelope was originally very exquisite, but after it was taken out from the little guy's shorts, the design was wrinkled and did not dare to be complimentary. Although the little curly bear was a pet with intelligence, Shanghai Laner still specially designed a pair of shorts for it, in the name of preventing it from being exposed. Lin Yi did not know whether to laugh or cry as he opened the letter. The handwriting on it was beautiful and fresh, but there was one thing that made Lin Yi frown slightly. Shanghai Laner reported that recently, there was an inner disciple called Wuxia in Rising Sky Pavilion. He was looking around for people to inquire about the recent situation of Welcoming Pavilion, especially the strong newcomers who had recently risen. It was said that Nan Tianyong, the supervising deacon of Rising Sky Pavilion, who was also this guy's master, had previously gone to the Hong Chamber of Commerce to make a scene, but ended up being disgraced. After returning to Rising Sky Pavilion, he seemed to be helping to do the same thing, and the commotion was not small. Shanghai Lena was originally not interested in this kind of rumor, but when she heard the word, strong newcomer, she suddenly thought of Lin. After all, if one were to talk about the most popular newcomer in Welcoming Pavilion, even if the newcomers from all three pavilions were put together, it would still be Lin Yi. After all, the previous two newcomer assessment rounds had consecutively obtained full marks, which was something that no other newcomer dared to imagine. Although the newcomers from the three pavilions were scored separately, the difficulty of the first two rounds of assessment was the same. Just based on this point, the other newcomers had no choice but to be convinced. Shanghai Laner speculated that this matter might have something to do with Lin Yi, so she sent the little curly bear over to inform him. Wuxia? Could it be the guy who snatched the star ink stone from her previously? Chapter 3802. Lin Yi was at least 99% sure that this Wuxia was the person who stole the star ink stone last time, and the powerful newcomer that the other was looking for was him. What made Lin Yi slightly confused was that he had only fought with this Wuxia after buying the star ink stone last time. Even if this guy could determine that he was someone from the Welcoming Pavilion from the route he took when he came back, how could he be so sure that he was a newcomer and not a steward of the Welcoming Pavilion? After all, when they fought, Lin Yi didn't hold back at all with his peak early-stage foundation establishment strength. If it was any normal person, they would probably think of the Welcoming Pavilion steward and not consider a newcomer, right? He read the contents of the letter once more, and saw the words Nan Tianyong, the supervising deacon of the Soaring Pavilion. He understood what was going on very quickly. The reason why the other side didn't ask about the Welcoming Pavilion stewards was probably because they knew the backgrounds of these new stewards, and even high-level people like Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng like the back of their hands, so they had already been eliminated beforehand. After eliminating all the possibilities that could be eliminated, there was only one possibility left. No matter how ridiculous and unbelievable it was often true and reliable. This Wuxia had suffered such a big loss last time, so it wasn't strange at all that he was looking for him all over the world for revenge. What made Lin Yi a bit surprised was that this guy actually pulled out Nan Tianyong, his master. If it was just Wuxia, even if Lin Yi was discovered, there was nothing to be afraid of. But if there was also Nan Tianyong, who he had never met before, and who was very likely to be very powerful, then this matter would be slightly more troublesome. Shanghai Laner's letter came very timely. If she hadn't tipped him off, Lin Yi wouldn't have been able to find out about these things in such a short amount of time. And if he allowed Wuxia and Nan Tianyong to limit their gaze to the newcomers of the Welcoming Pavilion and keep investigating like this, after a long time, it was very likely that something would happen. Even though when he was dealing with Wuxia, Lin Yi wore the Thousand Silk Mask to be safe and moved around as Second Lin from beginning to end. Even if Wuxia and Nan Tianyong were investigating the newcomers of the Welcoming Pavilion, they wouldn't be able to connect it to Lin Yi in a short amount of time. But, in the end, this matter still had risks. No matter how well Lin Er's identity was concealed, it was impossible for it to be flawless. If Wuxia and Nan Tianyong were to stare at him for too long, they would eventually find some clues. Once this fake identity was exposed, Lin Yi would be in big trouble. He had already made countless enemies in the Welcome Pavilion. Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong were nearby, and Su Lingchong and Kong Mingming were far away. Even people like Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng were natural enemies. If Wuxia and Nan Tianyong, the supervising deacon of Soaring Sky Pavilion, were added to the mix, how could they continue to mingle in Yingxin Pavilion in the future? No matter how strong Lin Yi was. That was only relative to ordinary rookies. Lin Yi was also a little depressed to be targeted by so many powerful opponents with deep backgrounds. Lin Yi's principle was that he wasn't afraid of anything, but his main goal was to focus on cultivation. It wasn't a battle of wits and courage with this group of people. This was a real crisis. It seemed to be far away, but it was actually right in front of him. If he was a little careless, it could be a disaster in the next few days. After receiving the news from Shanghai Laner, Lin Yi's first reaction was that a long delay would bring trouble. He had to think of a way to divert the attention of these two people as soon as possible. However, how could he divert the attention of these two people? That was another problem. Lin Yi couldn't come into contact with them at the moment. Even if there was a chance to meet them face to face, according to normal people's logic, it would be better to avoid it as much as possible. It was impossible to jump out and meet them face to face. Otherwise, once they came into close contact, he might be discovered. Then he would be walking right into a trap. After all, when one's strength reached the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, the sensitivity of one's perception was no small matter. However, if he didn't even have the chance to come into contact with them, what could he use to mislead them? This was obviously a paradox. I got it. Lin Yi thought for a moment, and his eyes suddenly lit up. With his current identity as Lin Yi, it really wasn't good to jump out and take the initiative to come into contact with Wuxia and Xianxia. Even if he did come into contact with them, it wasn't realistic to divert their attention away from the welcoming pavilion. Since they had locked onto the welcoming pavilion, and locked onto the newcomers, they had already eliminated all other possibilities. Trying to mislead them from this angle was even more difficult. Moreover, if the traces of misdirection were too heavy, it would be easy to give them a handle. However, even if he couldn't divert their attention away from the welcoming pavilion, Lin Yi still had a way to make himself disappear from their line of sight without leaving a trace. The reason was very simple. As long as he could find a way to get them to eliminate him from the list of suspects, then no matter how long they stared at the welcoming pavilion in the future, no matter how detailed their investigation was, they wouldn't be able to connect it to him. Because, subconsciously, they had already labeled him as impossible. To achieve this, it wasn't difficult at all. He only needed to do one thing, and that was to get them to come and see him on their own accord before they narrowed down the list of suspects. From the looks of it, this idea was no different from courting death. However, the person who fought with Wuxia was Lin Yi, and today's Lin Yi was a completely different person. If they hadn't seen Lin Yi's face, Wuxia and Xianxia would have easily locked onto Lin Yi based on all the recent rumors about the welcoming pavilion. Once they matched Lin Yi and Lin Yi, the final result would only become more and more similar until they could confirm that there was no mistake. This was because the target was too obvious. Although the Lin Yi they were looking for was at the peak of the early stage of the foundational realm, and the welcoming pavilion's Lin Yi was only at the early stage of the foundational realm, as long as they put in the effort, it was completely possible to hide one's strength. What's more, during the resistance assessment, Lin Yi had taken a full blow from a peak of the early stage of the foundational realm, but he was able to recover in a short period of time. This could completely prove that he was at the peak of the early stage of the foundational realm. These were all the flaws that maintained the relationship between Lin Yi and Lin Yi. Once they really matched Lin Yi's appearance with Lin Yi's, they would inevitably think in the direction of disguise or a human skin mask even if they found out that Lin Yi looked different from Lin Yi. In the end, there would still be a day when his identity would be exposed. Therefore, if they allowed Wuxia and Xianxia to continue investigating, it would be very dangerous for Lin Yi. Chapter 3803. Let them confirm that he was just a simple Lin Yi, and not the Lin Yi they were looking for. Subconsciously, they would not think of him as the person they were looking for. Then, these so-called flaws on Lin Yi's body would be impossible to talk about. And the most direct and effective way to make the other party have a strong first impression was to find an opportunity to let Wuxia and Xianxia come over to take a look at him. Seeing is believing. Ordinary people believe in their eyes far more than their intuition. Even powerful cultivators would find it difficult to change this nature. Before Wuxia and Xianxia locked the suspicion on him, let them see his face that was completely different from Lin Yi's. Once they took the initiative to cut off the connection between Lin Yi and Lin Yi, then the crisis would naturally be solved. However, although this method was simple and effective, if Lin Yi took the initiative to find an opportunity to get close to them, it would be too deliberate and easy to make people suspicious. The best way was to use a third party to lead them to take the initiative to come over. Xiao Bai, wait here for a while. I will write a letter to your master. Help me bring it back later. Lin Yi thought for a moment and comforted the little curly bear who was hanging on him. Then he found a pen and ink and wrote a reply to Shangguan Lin. Yes, the third party that Lin Yi expected was his little senior sister, Shangguan Lin. Although Shangguan Laner was the well-deserved first lady of the three pavilions, with her pure and enthusiastic personality, once Lin Yi asked, she would be happy to help. However, Lin Yi did not think of asking her to take the initiative to find Yu Zhe and Nan Tianyong. After all, her identity was too conspicuous. If she took the initiative to ask this kind of irrelevant gossip, it would be too unreasonable. So, even if he wanted her to help, he had to at least think of a reasonable explanation. He had to borrow the help of others. And around Shangguan Laner, there was such a natural candidate, Su Lingchong, eldest young Master Su. In the letter, Lin Yi described in detail how he needed Shangguan Laner's help. Only then did he fold the letter and pass it to little Curly Bear. Then, he went out and escorted the little Curly Bear back until he entered the inner core area of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Only then did he leave quietly. After returning to the cave residence at the foot of the mountain, Lin Yi returned to his normal pace as if nothing had happened. During the day, he still went to the Jade Spirit Hall to mine. At night, he infused his true qi into the 85 spiritual herb seeds. Apart from that, he meditated and cultivated. Previously, Lin Yi had planned to go out and purchase some medicinal ingredients in the next few days to refine pills and gain some benefits for Li Jingming. But now, before he dealt with the potential danger of Yu Zhe, it was inconvenient for Lin Yi to go out and do things as second Lin. Fortunately, Li Jingming wasn't in a hurry and let him wait a little longer. It was no big deal. On Laner's side, after receiving Lin Yi's reply, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Looks like you owe this senior sister a favor again. However, she didn't have any hesitation and began to do as Lin Yi said. What she had to do was actually very simple. She just had to find a suitable opportunity to leak some information to Su Lingchong. This opportunity was not difficult to find. The second and third generation cultivators of the Soaring Sky Pavilion were naturally a small social circle. Every few days, there would be various forms of gatherings. And with the powerful background of Lena, no matter where she went, she was an existence that people looked up to. If she wanted to join this kind of gathering, she didn't need to greet anyone. Her appearance would only make any host feel honored, and they would absolutely not dare to have any displeasure. This young lady rarely participated in the gathering of the second generation in the past. To be able to let her show her face, then in the circle of the second generation, it would be the capital to brag about in the future. However, although Lena rarely participated in these gatherings, if she wanted to find Su Lingchong, she would be able to find him at this kind of gathering. The second generation that could enter this circle, no matter which one of them, had an illustrious family background. Not to mention how many elite geniuses these second generation could produce, just based on their family background, it was already very worth to befriend and rope them in. For Su Lingchong, who was wholeheartedly studying to become the pillar of the Su family in the future, this kind of great opportunity in front of him, of course, would not let go of it. On the second day after receiving Lin Yi's reply, Laner appeared in Huayang restaurant with the little curly bear. This was a luxurious consumption place specially opened by Soaring Sky Pavilion. A casual meal in this high-end place would cost hundreds of spiritual jades. The degree of luxury was not below any of the restaurants outside. It was the best choice for the gathering of the second-generation cultivators. Of course, cultivators generally did not need to eat, but the food here was also quite beneficial for cultivators. The vegetable dishes were basically cooked using precious spiritual herbs, and the meat dishes were specially raised from livestock that had absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Not only was it incomparably delicious to eat, but after entering the body, it was also very beneficial for improving and consolidating one's strength. However, this was also not a place that ordinary loose cultivators and disciples with no background could afford to spend. It was just that this couldn't be compared, as people could increase their strength just by eating a meal. And as Shanghai Laner had expected, young Master Su Lingchong was indeed not absent. Seeing the figure of Shanghai Laner, All the second-generation cultivators were suddenly collectively stunned. After a moment, they reacted, and one after another, they hurriedly surrounded her to greet her. Don't look at these second-generation cultivators, each and every one of them walking out with their mouths wide open, as if they were the only one in the world, but in front of a young lady like Shanghai Laner, they were not even fart. Who asked her to have such a valiant grandfather like Shanghai Tianhua? Even the elders of their families, in front of her grandfather, could only nod their heads and bow. In front of eldest Miss Shangguan, they could only naturally be a head shorter. And among the crowd, if one were to say that the one who fawned on Shanghai Laner the most was none other than Su Lingchong. Don't forget that this guy wholeheartedly wanted to become the grandson-in-law of Shanghai Tianhua. At this time, if he still did not know to seize the opportunity to fawn on her, then he was really stupid. Seeing so many second-generation young masters surrounding Shangguan Laner like lapdogs, one of the women in the banquet suddenly became unhappy. She sarcastically said, "Some women really don't understand the rules. Relying on the little background of their family, they bring a broken spiritual pet to wander around. This is Huayang residence, and anyone who casually enters and leaves is either rich or noble. Is this a place where a broken spiritual pet like you can come?" Chapter 3804. What's wrong? Did I say anything wrong? Being stared at by everyone, the woman suddenly panicked. She didn't know Shanghai Laner, and there was no personal enmity between them. The reason why she said that was purely out of a moment of anger and jealousy. Before Shanghai Laner appeared, because she was the only woman present, and her appearance wasn't bad, it could be said that she was the moon surrounded by stars. Even Su Lingchong, the young master with a deep background, was quite fond of her. Unexpectedly, as soon as Shangguan Lan appeared, everyone threw her aside like a pair of worn-out shoes and ignored her. The difference was so great that she couldn't help but mock her. When Shanghai Laner heard this, she just glanced at the other party indifferently and snorted. Without saying anything more, she directly walked into the VIP room at the side. However, the little curly bear on her body swaggered at the woman for a while. Don't forget, although this little fellow was still in its infancy, the curly bear's race was naturally a high-level spiritual beast. Since young, it had a high spiritual intelligence, so it could completely understand what the woman said. Seeing Shanghai Laner walk into the VIP room with a disdainful look, the woman was suddenly stunned, and then became angry. However, before she could speak again, Su Lingchong's face had completely darkened. Who brought this woman here? Su Lingchong didn't even look at the woman's expression, and coldly swept his eyes over the group of second-generation young masters. Apart from Shanghai Laner, he, the young master, had the deepest background. At this time, when he opened his mouth, the other second-generation young masters could only listen. "Young Master Su, it's me." A second-generation young master weakly raised his hand. This woman was a relative of a low-ranking elder in Soaring Sky Pavilion. Previously, she had been raised in her hometown because her strength was good. Recently, she was brought to Soaring Sky Pavilion, but she didn't expect that this kind of thing would happen the first time she came out to play. She didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. If she wanted to court death, no one could stop her. Bring her back. Tell her family about today's matter. Let them do as they see fit. Also, if any of you give her a good face in the future, you'll have to bear the consequences. Bear the consequences. Su Lingchong coldly said. To be honest, this woman was quite good-looking. Young Master Su's heart was moved when he first met her, but if he put this woman together with Miss Shangguan, that was not even a fart, so Su Lingchong naturally did not hesitate to step on it. As soon as he finished speaking, Su Lingchong turned around and entered the VIP private room, leaving behind a group of second-generation young masters looking at each other in dismay and a pale woman who realized that she was about to be in big trouble. Junior Sister Lan, that blind woman outside. I've already taught him a lesson for you. Come, drink some spirit tea that was just imported from Middle Island to calm down. Su Lingchong smiled apologetically and said, this kind of spirit tea was made by the tea master of Najima. Casually drinking it could clear the heart and concentrate the mind. Moreover, it was greatly beneficial for cultivation. It could make the true qi in the body more pure. The price of one tael was at least 100 spirit jades. Shanghai Laner took it, but before she could take a sip, it was immediately snatched away by the little curly bear. Like drinking water, it drank it in one gulp. After he finished, he also flashed his teacup at Su Lingchong, indicating for him to pour more. Su Lingchong's eyelids couldn't help but twitch violently, but for the sake of Shanghai Laner's face, he could only bite the bullet and pour more for the little curly bear. His heart was bleeding. What was a reckless waste of natural resources? This was an out-and-out reckless waste of natural resources. Shanghai Laner couldn't help but laugh when she saw Su Lingchong obviously feeling pained, yet forcefully putting on a generous appearance. She thought in her heart, this fellow really loves to put on an act and is hypocritical to the extreme. In comparison, my little junior brother Lin Yi is much more straightforward. After listening to Su Lingchong's idle chatter, Shangguan Laner opened her mouth and deliberately led the topic. That Lin Yi from the welcoming pavilion, how is he doing recently? Didn't you say that you were going to find someone to deal with him for me? Did junior sister Lan come this time to punish me? Although he was very happy to see Shangguan Laner and Lin Yi at each other's throats, but if he didn't see Lin Yi being unlucky for a long time, it would affect her impression of him as her senior brother. Then, the gains would not make up for the losses. Su Lingchong was shocked, and then he hurriedly patted his chest and promised, Junior sister Lan, don't worry. I've already found someone to specifically keep an eye on that kid. After we've figured out how strong he is, it'll be easy to find an opportunity to get rid of him. Speaking of which, Su Lingchong was quite ashamed when he said this. He was a dignified young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, but he had to go through so much trouble to deal with Lin Yi, who was just a newcomer in the secular world. This kind of thing was really shameful. Shangguan Laner nodded indifferently. She originally didn't come to instigate Su Lingchong to deal with Lin Yi. The reason why she mentioned Lin Yi was just as Lin Yi told her in the letter, to start a conversation and lead the topic to Yu Zhe and Nan Tianyong. After a short pause, Shangguan Laner said, Recently, I've heard rumors from the surrounding people that there are people in the Soaring Sky Pavilion asking about the newcomers in the Welcoming Pavilion. I wonder if senior brother Su has heard of it? Junior sister Lan, could it be the pair of master and disciple, Nan Tianyong and Yu Zhe? Su Lingchong was the young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. As long as there was any movement in the Soaring Sky Pavilion, it was impossible to escape his ears. Naturally, he knew this kind of thing like the back of his hand. It seems to be the name. I've only heard it mentioned by others. I just feel that the strong newcomer in the Welcoming Pavilion might be related to Lin Yi. I've often heard people say that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If it's inconvenient for senior brother Su to directly deal with Lin Yi, why don't you contact these two people? Maybe you'll have an unexpected harvest? Shangguan Laner pretended to be careless and suggested. Su Lingchong was stunned when he heard this, and then his eyes lit up. That's right. Junior sister Lan is really smart. If you didn't remind me, I wouldn't have thought of this. This was not a lie. If it wasn't for Shangguan Laner's guidance, Su Lingchong would have ignored this kind of rumor. He wouldn't have associated it with Lin Yi for a while, and he wouldn't have thought of joining forces with people like Yu Zhe. Although Yu Zhe was also an inner court disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, because of his ordinary background, they were not on the same level. Therefore, he couldn't enter Su Lingchong's eyes at all. Chapter 3805. However, although Su Lingchong did not intend to make friends with this master and disciple, if it was really as Shanghai Laner said, that the powerful newcomer of the Welcome Pavilion that these two people were looking for was really Lin Yi, he might as well make use of it. With this master and disciple's attitude of inquiring all over the world, the only possibility was that this person was an irreconcilable enemy. At that time, if they could really confirm that it was Lin Yi, then young Master Su didn't need to worry about it. These two people would rush to deal with Lin Yi. It was easy to kill with a borrowed knife. Why not? More importantly, this was a rare request from Shanghai Laner. Not to mention that this matter was beneficial to Su Lingchong, even if there were no benefits. In order to please this junior sister Lan heir, he would definitely agree, and it was impossible to reject the other party's face. After figuring out the key points, Su Lingchong immediately said to Shangguan Lan, I'll talk to them in the next 2 days, and then we'll go to the welcoming pavilion together to see if the person they're looking for is Lin. If little junior sister Lan has nothing to do, why don't we watch the fun together? Shanghai Laner agreed without hesitation. In this letter that Lin replied to her, he did not specify the cause and effect, nor did he mention his identity as another Lin. He just asked her to do a favor according to the letter, so Shanghai Laner also wanted to see what Lin was planning this time. Another good opportunity to cultivate a relationship with junior sister Lan Er. Su Lingchong was overjoyed when he saw this. However, when he turned his head and saw what the little curly bear did next to him, his face collapsed in an instant. He wanted to cry but had no tears. It turned out that while the two of them were talking, the little curly bear next to them was not idle at all. He actually secretly drank the 2 pots of spiritual tea prepared on the table. These 2 pots of spiritual tea. The price was 500 spiritual jades. In other words, in such a short time, the little fellow helped this young master Su squander 500 spiritual jades. No matter how powerful his family background was, he couldn't afford such squandering. I'll take my leave first. Shengguan Laner didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She had to drag the little curly bear away, otherwise she would have to stay here. She was afraid that Su Lingchong would lose his rationality and fly off the handle on the little fellow. Time passed by in a flash, and the 5th round of the newcomer challenge began as usual. All the rookies had gathered by the side of their respective arenas, waiting for the challenge to begin. However, the difference between this round and the previous 4 rounds was that on the side of the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, there were a few uninvited guests. It was Su Lingchong and his group. All the newcomers immediately started discussing because this time, other than Su Lingchong and Shangguan Laner, there was another unfamiliar face, and from his attire, he was undoubtedly an inner court disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. As expected, it was this fellow. The moment he saw Yuzhe appear behind Su Lingchong, Lin Yi's eyelids couldn't help but twitch. This time, it was all thanks to Shanghai Laner's information, and also thanks to his timely reaction. Otherwise, if he allowed this guy to continue investigating, it would be really dangerous. Young Master Su, I've been looking forward to your arrival. When Meng Jueguang saw Hu Yunfeng accompanying Su Lingchong over, he hurriedly went over and greeted them with a fawning expression. Su Lingchong nodded to him and then introduced both parties. This is our Soaring Sky Pavilion's Yuzhe, and this is the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomer manager Meng Jueguang that I mentioned to you on the way here. You two get to know each other. This time, only Yuzhe came over with Su Lingchong. His master Nan Tianyong originally wanted to come, but because he had a mission midway, he was transferred by the law enforcement hall to cooperate with them, so he could only put it on hold. Oh, so it's senior brother Yu. It's an honor to meet you. Meng Jueguang didn't know what was going on, and thought that Yuzhe was Su Lingchong's underling. Moreover, Yuzhe saw that Yuzhe's strength was above his, so he hurriedly tried to curry favor with him. Yuzhe couldn't help but want to roll his eyes. I've been hiding in the library pavilion for 3 years, and even the inner disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion might not have heard of me. This Meng Jueguang, a newcomer manager of Welcoming Pavilion who had nothing to do with me, actually opened his mouth and said that it's an honor to meet you. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, these were all polite words, so Yuzhe naturally wouldn't expose him. He immediately replied, not at all, not at all. Brother Meng is young Master Su's favorite, so I should be the one saying that it's an honor to meet you. Hearing this, Meng Jueguang was instantly secretly pleased. He thought that this Yuzhe really knew how to talk. Being young Master Su's favorite, this was the direction that he would work hard towards in the future. As long as he firmly held onto young Master Su's thick thigh, it would not be difficult for him to achieve meteoric success. The two of them exchanged greetings for a while. Seeing that the newcomer challenge was about to begin, Su Lingchong coughed lightly and interrupted them. All right, the two of you don't have to be so courteous. Let's get down to business. Yuzhe nodded and cut to the chase. Brother Meng, I heard that your Blue Cloud Pavilion has a newcomer with the surname Lin. His strength is especially outstanding. I wonder if he's here today? Can you point him out to me? A newcomer with the surname Lin? His strength is especially outstanding? Meng Jueguang frowned. Without a doubt, this was referring to Lin. However, why was this Yuja asking about Lin? Although he was puzzled, Meng Jueguang still immediately pointed him out. There, that's Lin. His strength is only SOSO among the newcomers, but he likes to show off and brag about his strength. He doesn't have much popularity, and his intelligence is a bit problematic. Meng Jueguang thought that something good was about to befall the strongest rookie, so he directly beat up Lin Yi and planned on pushing Meng Tong out. Following the direction that Meng Jueguang was pointing, Yuja sized up Lin Yi from afar. His figure was quite similar to the second Lin in his impression. However, when he carefully looked at Lin Yi's face, he immediately determined that this Lin Yi was a completely different person from the second Lin he was looking for. They looked completely different. Yuja looked for a long time before finally shaking his head at Su Lingchong and company. He said in disappointment, although this person's figure looks similar, his appearance is completely different. He's not the person I'm looking for. Are you sure? Take a closer look. Could you have seen wrongly? Su Lingchong said with a frown. He couldn't wait for Lin Yi to turn out to be the Lin heir that this guy was looking for. That way, he'd have another fighter to deal with Lin Yi, and it'd save him the trouble of worrying about small things like this. However, in terms of urgency, Su Lingchong could not compare to Zhe, the person involved. Chapter 3806. Yuja smiled bitterly and shook his head. Young Master Su, this person looks completely different from that Lin second. You can tell with one glance. Actually, it wasn't just their looks that were completely different. That Lin second gave Yuja the impression that he was a very cunning and troublesome guy. He wasn't like Meng Jueguang, who liked to brag and create hype, and had problems with his intelligence. He sounded like two completely different people. It was only because of Su Lingchong's face that Yuja couldn't just leave like that after spending so much effort to come all the way to the welcoming pavilion. From his point of view, even if this Lin Yi wasn't the Lin heir he was looking for, he couldn't rule out the possibility of other newbies. Brother Meng, the newcomer I'm looking for, other than having outstanding strength, should have a lot of spirit jades on hand. At least a few hundred spirit jades shouldn't be a problem. I wonder if this Lin Yi or the other newcomers fit this condition. You should change the subject. He didn't plan on talking about what happened that day in detail because it involved the Star Inkstone and Supreme Grade Foundation barrier-breaking pill. If he said it in front of Su Lingchong and the others, then even if he could successfully pull out Lin second, he probably wouldn't have anything to do with it. Yuja didn't mind being a hired thug for a young master like Su Lingchong, but when it came to these great treasures, then there was nothing to say. In reality, let alone this eldest young master Su, who he didn't have much of a relationship with, Yuja and even his own master, Nen Tianyong, had never mentioned the matter of the Star Inkstone or the top-grade foundation establishment barrier-breaking pill. In front of benefits, not caring about family was the true nature of a cultivator. A few hundred spirit jades? That's impossible. Lin is just a pauper. Never mind a few hundred, it's already good enough that he could take out one. As for the other newcomers, although they don't have a few hundred, they're definitely much better than a pauper like Lin. Meng Jueguang flatly denied it. Until now. He thought that Yuja had come to find someone for something good, so he kept belittling Lin. But what he said wasn't false. At least in the eyes of others, including him, Lin Yi really couldn't have any spirit jades on him. As long as he could get his hands on a few pieces of good jade. They were immediately swapped with scrap jades by the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers. With the ferocity of the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, they would be able to leave a good piece of jade for Lin. That was already a great mercy. As for a few hundred spiritual jades, this was simply impossible. There might not even be a few hundred pieces of useless jade. What's more, a scrap jade could only fool an idiot like Lin. If he used it outside, it would be impossible to get away with it. Once discovered, he would be beaten to death on the spot. Hearing Meng Jueguang's words, Yuja immediately eliminated the possibility of Lin Yi. After all, other than a slight resemblance to Meng Jueguang in terms of physique, everything else, be it in terms of appearance, style of doing things, or Lin Yu's family background. He was a completely different person from the Lin heir he knew. There was no connection between the two. Seeing Yuja's somewhat disappointed expression, Meng Jueguang couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother Yu, Why are you spending so much effort to find this newcomer? I don't dare to boast about anything else, but I know every single newcomer in Blue Cloud Pavilion like the back of my hand. Why don't you tell me the specifics? Maybe I can help you look for one? His intention in saying this was to see if he could gain any benefits from this. If he could also push Meng Tong out. Yuzha was originally disappointed, but hearing Meng Jueguang's words, his eyes immediately lit up. In Welcoming Pavilion, Meng Jueguang was an out-and-out local snake. When it came to understanding the newcomers in Welcoming Pavilion, he was far above people like eldest young Master Su and Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng. If he wanted to find someone, it would be a piece of cake. It would naturally be best if he could help. Then many thanks for Brother Meng's good intentions. The person I'm looking for is called Lin Er. Of course, this is most likely an alias. As for the conditions, it's what I just told you. I won't hide it from you, Brother Meng. This person is my irreconcilable mortal enemy. I almost died at his hands a while ago. I must avenge this enmity, so I'll have to trouble Brother Meng to help me. Yuzha pleaded with a sincere expression. When Meng Jueguang heard this, he really wanted to slap himself. After beating around the bush for so long, he didn't get any so-called benefits. It turned out that the person this guy was looking for was his mortal enemy. He was so focused on belittling Lin Yi, and even wanted Meng Tong to replace him. Now that he thought about it, didn't his words turn out to be a great help to Lin Yi and help him clear his suspicions? If he had known earlier, he would have inverted the truth and tried his best to lure Lin Yi. Who cared if Lin Yi was the Lin heir that this guy was looking for? First, he would have sowed discord and killed the suspicion on Lin Yi. When the time came, he would have made a great enemy for Lin Yi for no reason. Wouldn't that be great? Such a great opportunity was wasted by him. Instead, he carelessly helped Lin Yi block a calamity. This was fucking cheap. However, the words had already been said. No matter how much Meng Jueguang regretted it, he couldn't change his words. He could only vaguely nod his head and give a perfunctory reply. Young Master Su, Pavilion Master Hu, I still want to take a look at the other two pavilions' newcomer arenas. Is that possible? Yuzha turned his head and asked Su Lingchong. Since he couldn't find the person he was looking for in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, then he would turn around and take a look at the Soaring Sky Pavilion and the Mysterious Pavilion. This was a very normal logic. Moreover, the strength of the newcomers in the two pavilions was definitely higher than the Blue Cloud Pavilion. The possibility of Lin Er being mixed in there was also much higher than in the Blue Cloud Pavilion. However, this was the Welcoming Pavilion's territory. Under normal circumstances, outsiders like him were not allowed to casually wander around. Of course, as long as Su Lingchong and Hu Yunfeng nodded their heads, there would naturally be no problem. Go ahead. Su Lingchong impatiently waved his hand and signaled Hu Yunfeng to accompany him. Although he didn't achieve his goal of getting someone else to do his dirty work, this guy was still an inner disciple of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. His attitude towards young Master Su was also very respectful. He could barely be considered half one of his own, so it wasn't a big deal to do him a favor. Seeing Yuzha and Hu Yunfeng leave, the corner of Lin Yi's mouth couldn't help but curve up. As he expected, this move of first impressing others worked. Although the location was slightly far, Lin Yi couldn't hear what Yuzha and the others were talking about. However, he was still able to hear a few bits and pieces and roughly understand the situation. Chapter 3807. Of course, Meng Jueguang didn't realize this. Now that he realized it, he was probably regretting it so much that his intestines would turn green. What was called being too smart for one's own good? This was how people like Meng Jueguang, who thought he was always smart, thought so highly of himself. After Yuzha, the uninvited guest, left, he was a little puzzled. Lin 1, Lin 2, their names were similar. Logically speaking, they should be the same person. Could it be that those people heard wrong? Not many people knew Lin 2's name, but when he was selling the spirit beasts, it was heard by some people. Now that Yuzha found out about it, it was reasonable for there to be a mistake. The 5th round of the Blue Cloud Pavilion Newcomer Challenge officially began. This time was different from the past. Eldest Miss Shengguan and eldest young Master Su were watching from the sidelines. Any normal person would want to be in the limelight and leave a good impression on these two people. It should be known that if one of these two people took a liking to them and took them in as a follower, their future would be meteoric. With such thoughts, in addition to the grudges accumulated from the previous 4 rounds, today's rookie challenge could be said to be filled with the smell of gunpowder from the beginning to the end. It was an exciting match. As usual, the first battle to begin was still the highlight of the top 5. Xiao Ran from the 14th abode at the foot of the mountain challenged Meng Tong from the 13th abode at the foot of the mountain. After hearing Xiao Ran call out his name, Meng Tong's face fell. He exchanged glances with Meng Jueguang, who also had a helpless expression. In the end, he braced himself and walked onto the stage with heavy steps. This was different from the previous round. In the previous round, in order to trick Qiao Hongkai, Meng Tong took a 4th-rank Great Recovery pill and healed, but he still pretended to be injured. However, in this round, Meng Tong wasn't so lucky as to obtain a 3rd grade 4 Great Cyclic pill from Meng Jueguang. Thus, he was currently seriously injured and had yet to fully recover. However, in order to frighten Xiao Ran, he could only forcefully feign a fully recovered appearance in front of everyone. Unfortunately, things didn't go according to one's wishes. Xiao Ran didn't care at all. He didn't hesitate to issue a challenge right from the start. Meng Tong, what is this fellow dilly-dallying for? Isn't this Xiao Ran Lin Yi's little brother? Isn't it good to take advantage of this opportunity to deal with him? Su Lingchong looked at Meng Tong's cowardly behavior and couldn't help but frown. Although Meng Tong wasn't worthy of young Master Su's attention, he was still Meng Jueguang's underling and could be considered as one of his subordinates. But now, he was even cowering in front of Xiao Ran, a mere underling of Lin Yi's. It was simply improper. Because he hadn't been to the Welcome Pavilion recently, and because he didn't care about a small fry like Xiao Ran, Su Lingchong didn't carefully observe Xiao Ran's strength. He didn't know that Xiao Ran was already an early-stage Foundation Establishment Realm expert. Young Master Su didn't know that Meng Tong was an early-stage Foundation Establishment Realm expert, but he was already so weak that he had been injured twice in a row. Now, he was fighting with a body full of serious injuries. With his current state, not to mention facing Xiao Ran, an expert of the same level, even if Cha Wu, who was publicly recognized as weak, went up against him, he could easily beat him to his knees. Meng Jueguang heard this and immediately felt awkward. He couldn't say a word for a long time, and he was speechless. You have to know. Su Lingchong had high hopes for him. Recently, he had already begun to build up support for him in the upper echelons of the 3 pavilions, paving the way for him to take over as the 3rd pavilion master of the Welcome Pavilion. If he told him at this time that not only did he fail to deal with Lin Yi, but he was also continuously slapped in the face by 2 of Lin Yi's underlings, how could he continue to mingle in front of young Master Su? Just as Meng Jueguang didn't know how to explain it to young Master Su, under the referee's announcement, the duel on the stage had already officially begun. But this was a duel between 2 early-stage Foundation Establishment Realm experts. However, it ended rather quickly. Because with Meng Tong's current state, he didn't dare to make a move against Xiao Ran. After all, their positions were naturally hostile, and they had an unpleasant experience in the first round. He was afraid that Xiao Ran would take the opportunity to take revenge, or even directly kill him. So before the referee's voice fell, he still hurriedly raised his hand and shouted, "I admit defeat! I admit defeat!" The audience immediately went into an uproar. A familiar situation had already happened in the first round. At that time, it was also him and Xiao Ran, but the one who took the initiative to admit defeat was Xiao Ran. But now, only a short period of 4 rounds had passed, and the situation was completely reversed. What kind of ironic retribution was this? For Xiao Ran, this match could be said to be exhilarating. He forced Meng Tong, the so-called boss of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, to take the initiative to admit defeat. This was something that no one had ever done before, and he had thoroughly vented the resentment of the first round. However, for Meng Tong, this time, he didn't feel so good. Clearly, a few rounds ago, this guy could only cower and didn't even have the courage to face him. Now, in the blink of an eye, he was riding on top of his head and even forced to take the initiative to admit defeat. Who could understand this kind of depression to the point of death? More importantly, in this round, young Master Su happened to be present. This was his backer's backer. This wasn't just shameful, it was practically killing him. And just when the audience was in an uproar, young Master Su, who was watching the match, heard Meng Tong's words, and his face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Meng Jueguang, who was beside him, couldn't help but cover his face. Although Meng Jueguang knew that this time, Meng Tong was forced to make this choice, young Master Su didn't know the whole story. To be honest, although he brought Yuzha here for other matters, he was also looking forward to seeing Lin Yi and his gang's misfortune. After all, he also brought along Shanghai Laner, the young lady who was nominally displeased with Lin. Along the way, she swore that she would definitely make Lin Yi unlucky. And from the perspective of the newcomer challenge, it was just right. After all, even if they didn't see the boss, Lin Yi, being unlucky, seeing his underlings being crushed by Meng Tong was also a kind of pleasure for them. In the end, this guy, Meng Tong, didn't do anything on the stage. As soon as he came up, he directly admitted defeat without saying a word. This was fucking giving young Master Su a slap in the face in front of everyone, and it was a slap that shook the heavens. Looking at young Master Su's gloomy face for a long time without saying a word, with an expression that looked like he wanted to kill someone, Shanghai Laner, who was beside him, couldn't help but grin and hold back her laughter. The degree of Shanghai Laner's hatred for Su Lingchong, this hypocritical young master, was not a little bit. Over the years, she had been annoyed by this annoying person, but because of the relationship between their elders, she couldn't completely ignore it. Over time, she accumulated a lot of resentment. So, at this moment, listening to these things, there was no need to mention how great it was to vent her anger. Just as Meng Jueguang was racking his brains to explain to young Master Su, on the contrary, Lin Yi's group looked relaxed at the moment. Talking and laughing wittily. Meng Tong took the initiative to surrender as soon as he came up. Although this result was somewhat out of their expectations, it was also reasonable. After all, the 4th grade recover pill was not an ordinary pill that could be found on the street. Previously, Meng Jueguang was able to get 2 pills for him was already the limit. If they were to smash Meng Tong's body like a bottomless pit, not to mention that Meng Jueguang couldn't bear it, even Su Lingchong, a young master with a deep background, might not be willing to grit his teeth and spend such a big capital. Boss, you see, Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, these 2 idiots, are always swaggering around in front of us. But now that Su Lingchong came, they immediately shrunk back. Look at the 2 of them, they don't even dare to breathe loudly. They are so fucking scared. Xiao Hongkai laughed and gloated. Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh and said, "Hee, who asked them to make trouble for young Master Su the moment they came up. It's rare to come to the welcoming pavilion, but in the end, they saw Meng Tong surrender to our Xiao Ran. If I were him, I'm afraid that I would also be depressed. Of course, this little bit of anger can only be released on Meng Jueguang's little brothers." The bitter senior and Xiao Ran looked at each other and laughed. It was rare to see Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong being defeated like this. Even if they were honest and kind people, they couldn't help but feel refreshed and satisfied. It's a pity that Meng Tong is probably scared out of his wits. I was originally waiting for him to challenge me and then fight to the death with him to see whether his 1,000 legs or my cold iron palm is stronger. Unfortunately, I'm afraid I won't be able to wait for this opportunity today. After a few jokes, Xiao Hongkai shook her head with a regretful expression. Lin Yi heard her words and couldn't help but laugh. He shook his head and said, "Forget it. You should hurry up and challenge to earn points. This is what you should do now. As for dealing with Meng Tong, I promise you that there will be more opportunities like this in the future." "All right, I'll listen to you, boss." Xiao Hongkai nodded. Then, under everyone's gaze, he turned around and walked into the ring. As one of the 4 great early-stage foundational stage experts in Blue Cloud Pavilion, and having fought 2 consecutive rounds with Meng Tong, Xiao Hongkai had completely taken off the title of trash. He was no longer just a lackey under Lin Yi, but a real man of the moment. Now, in Blue Cloud Pavilion, no one dared to look down on him. On the contrary, When they thought of this guy's fierce performance in fighting 2 rounds with Meng Tong, everyone couldn't help but feel their scalp tingle. They didn't even dare to look him in the eye, afraid that he would misunderstand it as a provocation and target them. If that happened, even if they wanted to cry, they wouldn't be able to. According to the principle of maximizing points, Xiao Hongcai's next challenge was naturally to challenge the cave number 11 at the foot of the mountain, which was ranked above him. There was no suspense in the outcome of this battle. Finishing the battle in 1 move, Xiao Hongcai easily obtained his points. Then, under everyone's respectful gazes, he calmly walked off the stage. Looking at such a disgusting scene and listening to the nonsense Meng Jueguang said, young Master Su's expression was completely dark. He never thought that in the short period of time he didn't pay attention to this place, so many unforeseen events had happened. Moreover, they were unforeseen events that made him lose face. Chapter 3809. Although strictly speaking, these matters couldn't be blamed on him being useless. No one could have expected that Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongcai, these 2 small fries, would actually be able to counterattack and succeed in building their foundations at the same time. But in the end, he could only blame himself for not doing his job well. As a dignified steward's senior brother, he couldn't even deal with 2 small fries under Lin. This was a fact that couldn't be covered up no matter how he tried to find an excuse. Meng Jueguang felt ashamed and flustered, and didn't dare to find any excuse to shirk the responsibility in front of young Master Su. Based on Meng Jueguang's many years of experience, the best way to deal with this situation was to pretend to be sincere and ashamed and prepare to be scolded. There was no need to say anything else, because anything else would be superfluous. This young Master Su in front of him was truly a smart person. Any action of shirking responsibility in front of him was a stupid act of thinking oneself clever. The more one spoke, the more wrong one would be. It was better to put on a good attitude, and at least leave a good impression of being pragmatic. Sure enough, after a moment of silence, Su Lingchong opened his mouth and said, "All right, I roughly understand the situation. This matter can't be blamed on you, old Meng." After all, the other side's 2 small fries suddenly succeeded in building their foundations. This kind of thing is unexpected. Furthermore, it's normal for just 1 Meng Tong to be unable to handle it. You don't need to blame yourself too much. After all, Su Lingchong wasn't an ordinary hedonistic young master. His shrewdness and tolerance were far beyond that of ordinary people. Once a person like Meng Jueguang entered his eyes, as long as he didn't make a mistake on the crucial issue of loyalty, he could completely tolerate this kind of small mistake. Because only by doing this could he create an image of being open-minded and open-minded. In the future, there would also be more people who would rely on him and willingly sell their lives for him. Moreover, this time, Meng Jueguang could indeed be considered pardonable. If he, Su Lingchong, didn't let it go, then it would seem like he had no tolerance. Not only would it not help the situation, it would also easily ruin his reputation. The loss outweighed the gain. Thank you for your understanding, young Master Su. Old Meng, I won't say any more hypocritical words of flattery. Young Master Su, please watch my performance in the future. I will do my best and not disappoint young Master Su. Meng Jueguang said with a face full of gratitude. Su Lingchong obviously enjoyed this very much. It was rare for him to put down his status, and he reached out to pat Meng Jueguang's shoulder. All right, old Meng, this young master has seen your loyalty. Work hard in the future, and this young master will absolutely not treat you unfairly. Looking at the master and servant duo's performance, Shanghai Laner couldn't help but secretly curl her lips. Even if she was inexperienced, she could still feel the artificiality in this. Indeed, birds of a feather flock together. These people are really hypocritical to the extreme. They can't be compared to my little junior brother Lin. Little did they know that this was Su Lingchong deliberately pulling Meng Jueguang to put on a show. His vision was not limited to the mere welcome pavilion Lin. He did this completely to create an image of himself as a wise young master. He wanted to spread his reputation through the mouths of the people present, and pave the way for him to take over the Su family in the future. The master and the servant acted for a long time. Seeing that the audience was already talking about it, it seemed that the effect was almost there. Only then did they stop with satisfaction. Speaking of which, in this situation, old Meng, what do you think we should do? We can't let Lin Yi and his lackeys be so arrogant and presumptuous, right? Otherwise, if this goes on, where will I put my face? Where would I put my face then? Su Lingchong opened his mouth to ask. Although he himself was a smart person, his focus had always been on the top, and he would not waste too much energy on a small figure like Lin. If he had to do everything by himself, then what was the point of having a subordinate like Meng Jueguang? Young Master Su felt that what he had to do as the master was to be Meng Jueguang's backing, help him solve some things that he couldn't solve, and then let Meng Jueguang do it. To deal with a small figure like Lin Yi, Meng Jueguang was completely enough. Meng Jueguang had been waiting for Su Lingchong's words for a long time. Hearing this, he immediately replied, Young Master Su, in the current situation, although Lin Yi and the others are a bit too big to get rid of, in my opinion, the way to deal with them is actually very simple. As long as we take back the initiative in terms of strength, all other problems will naturally be solved. Old Meng, how do you want to take back the initiative? Su Lingchong frowned slightly. Of course, he knew that the strength that Meng Jueguang mentioned here referred to the strength of the newcomers under him. After all, if he didn't want to take risks, he could only deal with Lin Yi and the others through this group of newcomers. Lin Yi and the others were now already in the early stage of foundation establishment. On the other hand, among the newcomers under Meng Jueguang, there was only Meng Tong. In comparison, it seemed too weak. However, if he wanted the other newcomers under Meng Jueguang to break through to the foundation establishment stage as soon as possible, not to mention that it would require a lot of medicinal pills and resources, the key was that with so many resources invested, there might not be any results. This was because even Meng Jueguang, the big senior brother in charge, could not guarantee the loyalty of so many newcomers. Moreover, it was unknown how many of these newcomers could successfully break through. At that time, when they faced Lin Yi and the others, they might not be able to gain an advantage, and the effect would not be great. Meng Jueguang had already considered this, so he immediately said, Young Master Su, no matter how many resources are distributed to more people, it may not have an immediate effect. However, if they are concentrated on Meng Tong and let his strength rise to the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment, what do you think? Hearing this, Su Lingchong's eyes suddenly lit up. Not bad, not bad. As long as we let Meng Tong regain an overwhelming advantage in strength, then no matter how many early-stage foundation establishment cultivators Lin Yi and the others toss about, it will be useless. Old Meng, your idea is not bad. However, after a pause, Su Lingchong immediately shook his head and said, However, although what you said is right, if I remember correctly, Meng Tong just broke through to the foundation establishment stage last month, and he even took the foundation establishment pill and the foundation establishment liquid. If you want him to reach the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment in a short period of time, it is easier said than done. At the side, Meng Tong was originally overjoyed, thinking that he could get a lot of benefits this time. However, now that he heard Su Lingchong's words, his heart immediately sank to the bottom. Now that even young Master Su said so, wouldn't his grand wish of breaking through to the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment in a short period of time to find Lin Yi and the others for revenge become a daydream? Chapter 38:10. Meng Jueguang's words were quite emotional, and it could even be said that his voice was tearful. Even a smart person like Su Lingchong was somewhat bewitched for a moment. The meaning of Meng Jueguang's words couldn't be clearer. If they wanted to deal with Lin Yi, this was the only way out. They had to throw resources at Meng Tong, so that he could reach the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm as soon as possible and regain their advantage in terms of strength and rank. Otherwise, they could only watch helplessly as Lin Yi and his gang continued to be arrogant. At that time, not only would their subordinates lose face, but more importantly, Su Lingchong, the young master, would lose face as well. If they couldn't even deal with Lin Yi, a mere newcomer in the secular world, then how could they talk about their great ambitions in the future? But how could it be easy to quickly raise Meng Tong, an expert in the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, to the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm? If this guy's strength was profound and he had already touched the barrier between the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm and the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, then it would be fine. After all, this was only a matter of a foundation-breaking pill, so young Master Su had no reason to hesitate. The problem was that this guy had only been in the Foundation Establishment realm for less than a month, and he didn't even rely on his own strength. Instead, he relied on the foundation-building pill and the foundation-building liquid to forcibly build his foundation. It could be said that the foundation of this guy, Meng Tong, was even worse than other experts in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been defeated twice by Qiao Hongkai, who had only been in the Foundation Establishment realm for a few days. The martial arts technique that he cultivated, 1,000 kicks, could theoretically give him a lot of advantage against experts in the same level as him against Qiao Hongcai's cold iron palm. However, he still could only fight to a draw with Qiao Hongkai twice. This in itself was already very telling. To forcefully raise such a weak expert in the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm to the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, even with young Master Su's background, it wasn't to the extent that he didn't have any means to do so. However, the resources that would be consumed was not something that a mere foundation-breaking pill could compare to. If the pill resources here were converted into spiritual medicine, it was definitely not as simple as a few hundred spirit jades, but at least 1,000 spirit jades. Such an enormous price was something that even a young master like Su Lingchong, who possessed an exceedingly deep background, would absolutely feel heartache to the point of spitting blood once he spent it. Moreover, if he really had such a powerful pill that could forcefully raise a person's level, why didn't he keep it for his own use? Why did he give it to Meng Tong, who wasn't even a trusted aide? But looking at the eager expressions of Meng Jueguang and the rest, Su Lingchong was, after all, a young master of a region. He still felt a little embarrassed. After all, what Meng Jueguang said was the truth. If he didn't think of a way to quickly raise Meng Tong's strength, then it would be very difficult to punish Lin Yi's group of idiots who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. In the face of absolute strength, no matter how clever Meng Jueguang was, in the end he still couldn't replace Meng Tong. No matter how ingenious the plan was, in the end, not to mention Lin Yi himself, even his two subordinates might not be able to handle it. What else could he do? And if it wasn't a last resort, Su Lingchong didn't want to take the unorthodox path of assassinating Lin Yi. Even if this method was simple and direct, it would still leave behind something that could be used against him. If the people from the law enforcement hall were to sniff out any clues, then he, young Master Su, would be finished for the rest of his life. Before the core interests were involved, it was obviously not worth it for Su Lingchong to take such a risk to deal with a mere Lin Yi. The most realistic and reliable way was to let Meng Jueguang deal with him. After hesitating for a long time, Su Lingchong glanced at the pitiful Meng Tong. Then he turned to Meng Jueguang and said, with Meng Tong's current conditions, if we want to forcibly raise his level, ordinary elixirs are definitely not enough. If we really want to do this, I think we can only try some unorthodox methods. What do you think, old Meng? Unorthodox methods? Meng Jueguang was stunned, then he nodded repeatedly and said, young Master Su is wise, old Meng actually thinks so too. If it's ordinary elixirs, it's impossible to achieve the effect we need. Meng Tong was confused as he listened to the conversation between the two. He simply didn't know what the so-called unorthodox methods were. He only knew that young Master Su seemed to have agreed, and he was secretly delighted in his heart. Little did he know that anything that was called an unorthodox method meant that it wasn't an ordinary path. As everyone knew, when it came to cultivation, no matter how careful one was, one step would mean that every step would be wrong. The risks involved were not to be trifled with. In fact, whether it was Su Lingchong or Meng Jueguang, they were both well aware of this. With young Master Su's background, if he really wanted to help Meng Tong raise his level at all costs, there were definitely more reliable ways. For example, Lin Yi's method of using the Foundation Establishment Pill and the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Pill. This kind of elixir combination could not only raise one's strength in a short period of time, but also had no side effects. Even if it failed, there would be no danger. Although young Master Su might not be able to get his hands on the Foundation Establishment pill, he also had a way to get other elixirs to replace it. It was just that each of these elixirs was incomparably precious. Even if he spent thousands of spiritual jades, he might not be able to buy them. Even if young Master Su had them on hand, it was impossible for him to give them to Meng Tong. Moreover, even if young Master Su was truly righteous and generous to the point that he was willing to take out a pill of this level, it was absolutely impossible for it to fall into Meng Tong's hands. In the middle, Meng Jueguang would have already reached out and snatched it away. How could he leave it for such a foolish trash like Meng Tong? There was never a free lunch in the sky. Meng Tong actually foolishly believed in young Master Su and Meng Jueguang. He believed that these two people would really give him such great benefits. It could only be said that he was really blind. Seeing that Meng Jueguang had no objection, young Master Su directly ignored Meng Tong's reaction and immediately said, "Then let's do it this way. I happen to have a meridian heart-breaking pill in my collection. It was given to me by a senior alchemist a few years ago. As long as it is used well, it is enough to raise a level. It doesn't matter how poor the foundation is." It turns out to be the meridian heart-breaking pill. Meng Jueguang's eyelids couldn't help but twitch when he heard this. He had also heard about this elixir by chance. It was a kind of extremely heaven-defying elixir, but at the same time, it also made people shudder. Chapter 38:11. What did it feel like to have your heart broken? No one knew, because once the heart was broken, even the strongest practitioner would die without a doubt. However, ever since the meridian heart-shattering pill was invented, it forced living people to experience the pain of a broken heart that was worse than death. Once consumed, before breaking through to the next level, they could only endure the pain. If they were stuck there for the rest of their lives, they would only be freed when they died. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the meridian heart-shattering pill was a pill that tormented oneself. No matter how miraculous its effects were, no one dared to use it because of the strong side effects. Once consumed, the consequences would be unimaginable. The person who created this elixir was a genius elixir refiner, and it was said that he was extremely talented, even on par with the current miracle doctor Zhang Liju. But different from Zhang Liju, this genius elixir refiner had never been recognized by the mainstream of the practitioner's world. Because he created all sorts of unorthodox recipes, he was classified as an evil practitioner and was hunted by the righteous sections. All he could do was hide from them. Until one day, his wife, who he had been relying on for survival, was surrounded and killed by cultivators of the righteous sections. Due to his lack of strength, he could only watch helplessly as his wife died. From that day onwards, this genius alchemist officially joined the evil cultivators' camp. In order to remind him not to forget the humiliation he had suffered, and at the same time to quickly improve his strength, the meridian heart-shattering pill was created. However, although the effects of the meridian heart-shattering pill were heaven-defying and its side effects were shocking, because the pill formula was rarely circulated on the market and there were very few alchemists who could refine it, its reputation was far from matching its heaven-defying effects. It was only circulated among a very small number of alchemists and well-informed people. If it wasn't for luck, even someone as experienced as Meng Jueguang wouldn't have heard of it, much less a newbie like Meng Tong. Even now, Meng Tong was still completely unaware of the hidden danger in this place. He was even daydreaming about it. The name Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill sounded like something incredible. Could it be that after using this pill, he would be able to shatter someone's heart with just a wave of his hand? More importantly, it could forcibly raise one's strength by a level. What an amazing pill! Old Meng, it shouldn't be a problem to give this Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill to Meng Tong, right? Su Lingchong asked again. He was well aware of the side effects of the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill, so even though he knew that this pill was very rare, he didn't feel bad about it. After all, he definitely wouldn't use it himself. It could only be a collector's item in his hands. If he could use it to deal with Lin, that would be making the best use of everything. As for whether or not Meng Tong's life would be ruined after taking it, that was not within his scope of consideration. In the end, trash like Meng Tong was nothing in his eyes. He couldn't even be considered an underling. At best, he was just a chess piece. Since he was a chess piece, he naturally didn't need to consider anything like human rights. After using him, if he was destroyed, then so be it. He could just find another one. However, Meng Jueguang was different. Not only was Meng Tong his underling, but they were also relatives. If he watched Meng Tong jump into the fire pit without saying a word, then not only would he be blamed by Meng Tong in the future, he would also be too ashamed to face anyone when he returned home. Young Master Su still valued Meng Jueguang, so at this time, he still had to ask for Meng Jueguang's opinion. Meng Jueguang couldn't help but hesitate. Even if Meng Tong was his relative, Meng Tong was still his most loyal underling. No matter how black-bellied Meng Jueguang was, he still had to consider his own reputation. After all, if even Meng Tong was tricked by him, then if this matter was spread out, who would be willing to work for him, Meng Jueguang? However, while Meng Jueguang was hesitating, Meng Tong, who didn't know what was going on, jumped out impatiently and volunteered, "Young Master Su, I can do it. I won't let young Master Su down. Ninth cousin brother, say something." At the same time, Meng Tong secretly tugged on Meng Jueguang's sleeves, hinting him to quickly agree. Meng Jueguang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The saying that the ignorant are fearless is true. It was rare for him to be kind and hesitate for a while, but in the end, Meng Tong was rushing into the fire pit himself. He couldn't even stop him. And looking at this situation, if he didn't quickly agree on his behalf, he might even think that he was blocking his way, and he would bear a grudge for no reason. In desperation, Meng Jueguang could only nod at Su Lingchong and said, "Thank you, young Master Su, for your generous reward." "Thank you, young Master Su, for your generous reward." Meng Tong also hurriedly expressed his gratitude, his face full of joy. Seeing this, Meng Jueguang could only shake his head speechlessly. Although he also knew that as long as he explained the stakes clearly to Meng Tong, no matter how brainless Meng Tong was, he would definitely not rush to take this elixir. But how could he say it in this situation? Disregarding everything else, just the fact that young Master Su was glaring at them like a tiger watching its prey made it difficult for Meng Jueguang to explain in detail. After all, young Master Su had brought up the Meridian Heart-Shattering pill because they had asked for it. If they were to be picky and refuse to cooperate, then where would young Master Su put his face? On one hand, Meng Tong, this idiot, was rushing to jump into the fire pit, and on the other hand he still had to take into account young Master Su's face. So, for Meng Jueguang, taking advantage of the situation and agreeing was the only choice he could make. As for whether Meng Tong would bear a grudge in the future, this was no longer in the scope of Meng Jueguang's consideration. Who asked this guy to rush into it? This was all Meng Tong's own idea. Meng Jueguang never said a single word of instigation. At that time, even if someone wanted to blame someone, it wouldn't be his head. "Okay, then let's do it this way. I'll go back and look for it. After 2 days, I'll ask someone to send this Meridian Heart-Shattering elixir over. Old Meng, you also help Meng Tong prepare well. The effect of this elixir is heaven-defying, which means that the medicinal effect is very overbearing. If we don't make thorough preparations in advance, it might be dangerous." Su Lingchong instructed. Chapter 38:12. For an unorthodox pill like the Meridian Heart-Shattering pill, one had to be even more careful when taking it. Ignoring one's foundation and forcibly increasing one's strength by one level, what kind of concept was that? Even if it was the foundation establishment pill, its effect could only let Lin Yi touch the barrier of the early stage of foundation establishment in advance, but it could not let him become an expert of the early stage of foundation establishment in one go. From this aspect, the effect of the Meridian Heart-Shattering pill was even higher than the foundation establishment pill. Even without considering the side effects of the heartbreaking pain, just based on the overbearing effect of increasing one's strength, one could think of the hidden risks in it even with one's toes. What's more, Meng Tong's current state was that he had yet to recover from his serious injuries. If he didn't make any preparations and just let him take it for free, let alone advance to the early stage of foundation establishment, he probably wouldn't even be able to feel the heartbreaking pain and would have to report to the underworld directly. Although Meng Tong didn't have much of a brain, he still had this bit of common sense. Hearing Su Lingchong's words, he thought that Su Lingchong was concerned about him, and immediately said gratefully, "Young Master Su, you really care about your subordinates too much. To be able to work under you is simply a blessing that can't be cultivated for several lifetimes." It was just that young Master Su didn't care about the life or death of Meng Tong, he only cared about whether the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill would go to waste. Although the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill's side effects were terrible, it was still a very rare pill, and its effect was indeed heaven-defying. Even if Su Lingchong didn't know how to take it himself, if it was wasted without any effect, he would still feel some heartache. Towards Meng Tong's brainless display of loyalty, Su Lingchong could only speechlessly roll his eyes. How could an idiot like you, who was cheated by others and still helped them with money, be worthy of being my subordinate? At most, you're just cannon fodder. Meng Jueguang could only smile awkwardly, looking at Meng Tong's eyes with pity and helplessness. He really didn't know what to say to such a brainless cousin. At this moment, Lin Yi and the others looked at Su Lingchong and Meng Jueguang's group muttering nonstop. They couldn't help but feel suspicious. What the hell are these guys up to this time? This was a very natural connection. After all, young Master Su was Meng Jueguang's big backer. Now that Meng Jueguang saw that he couldn't do anything to them, the only choice left was to seek help from young Master Su. "Boss, why don't we make a guess? Let's see what these guys will do next." Xiao Hongkai didn't seem worried at all as he smiled at Lin Yi and the others. Recently, he was in a pretty good mood. Due to the 2 consecutive fights with Meng Tong, which resulted in both sides suffering heavy losses, he quickly adapted to the strength of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. His strength had completely stabilized. If he hadn't fought those 2 tough battles with Meng Tong, he wouldn't have been able to reach this level under normal circumstances. It would have taken at least half a month or even more than a month of bitter cultivation. But now, he had accomplished it in just a few days. It would be strange if he was not in a good mood. Senior Brother Bitter smiled and said, "In my opinion, Senior Brother Meng and the others may want to get a few elixirs like the limit of the golden elixir. Senior Brother Meng and the others may want to get a few elixirs like the limit of the golden elixir. In the current situation, apart from elixirs like the limit of the golden elixir that can instantly increase strength, they can't do anything to these junior brothers with just Meng Tongi. The limit of the golden elixir could increase one's strength in a short period of time. In this way, even if they were all in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, it would be impossible for Xiao Hongkai to defeat Meng Tong, who had taken the limit of the golden elixir. Moreover, there was at least a 3-day buffer between each round of the challenge. As long as the plan was in place, they could completely avoid the weakness period of the limit of the golden elixir. In Senior Brother Bitter's understanding, this was already the best solution he could think of. In fact, it was indeed feasible and the price was not high. It was only a limit of the golden elixir. Regarding Senior Brother Bitter's words, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai agreed. However, only Lin Yi shook his head thoughtfully. If it was only Meng Jueguang himself, it wouldn't be strange for him to use the limit of the golden elixir. But now even young Master Su Lingchong has appeared. If it's still limited to the limit of the golden elixir, it's too small of a fight. It doesn't seem like this young master's style. In my opinion, what they're plotting is definitely not as simple as a few rounds of the challenge. There must be some kind of higher-level method. Lin Yi analyzed. Yes, that's right. Junior Brother Lin's words make more sense. Senior Brother Bitter and the others nodded in unison when they heard this. Indeed, as Lin Yi said, although Senior Brother Bitter's idea was reliable, it was only limited to Meng Jueguang's level. With Meng Jueguang's background, being able to help Meng Tong obtain the limit of the golden elixir was already considered to have done his best. However, he didn't consider that there was still young Master Su standing behind him. For a young master at Su Lingchong's level, the limit of the golden elixir was obviously too small of a deal. If it was just a discussion about a mere limit of the golden elixir, how could he discuss it with Meng Jueguang and the others for such a long time with his identity? Moreover, Lin Yi and the others clearly saw that Su Lingchong had hesitation in the beginning. To be able to make him, young Master Su, hesitate in his heart, what kind of big move was this? In that case, we have to guard against them in the future. Otherwise, even if Meng Tong can't deal with us, with this young Master Su and Meng Jueguang's crafty plots, it's also impossible to guard against them. Xiao Ran said with a solemn expression. Lin Yi nodded. Yes, but there's no need to worry too much. If soldiers come, we'll deal with them. In the end, strength is the way of the king. For the time being, Meng Jueguang only has Meng Tong, who is in the early stage of the foundation establishment realm. This is a fact that no one can change. Hehe, I actually hope that this scum, Meng Tong, will quickly eat some awesome medicinal pill before challenging me. Otherwise, with his pitiful courage, I reckon that he will never dare to challenge me again in this lifetime. Qiao Hongkai laughed. Although both sides were defeated twice in a row, for Qiao Hongkai, who had just succeeded in the foundation establishment realm a few days ago and was at a great disadvantage in terms of martial skills, this was already the same as the weak defeating the strong. As for Meng Tong, who originally had the absolute upper hand, there was probably already a shadow in his heart. If there was no huge breakthrough in his strength, it would be very difficult for him to have the confidence to face Qiao Hongkai, and it was even more impossible for him to defeat Qiao Hongkai and wash away his previous shame. Just wait, I believe that they won't let you down. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Chapter 38:13. Putting aside the fact that his hidden strength wasn't something that someone like Meng Tong could compete with, just the fact that he had planted two spies, Li Jingming and Zhong Pingliang, was enough to give him the upper hand in many things. Naturally, he didn't have to worry too much about the so-called conspiracies. In the 5th round of the newcomer challenge, because of the arrival of Su Lingchong's group, every match was full of the smell of gunpowder, but there weren't too many twists and turns. In the end, Li Jingming defeated the challenger once again. As for Lin Yi, the publicly recognized #1 newcomer, he played an entire round of soy sauce. After the challenge ended, the newcomers dispersed. However, Li Jingming, who had just won a match and gained a lot of points, didn't look much better because of this. He didn't go back to his cave like the other newcomers, but went straight to find Meng Jueguang, his real support in name. Senior brother Meng, I have some ideas about Lin Yi's group. I don't know if I can report it to you, senior brother? Li Jingming deliberately squeezed out a smile and walked to Meng Jueguang's side. Oh, Jingming, what ideas do you have? Tell me. Hearing that it was related to Lin Yi, Meng Jueguang immediately became interested. However, Meng Tong, who was beside him, curled his lips in disdain. He's just a heaven stage full cycle, what ideas can he have? It's just empty talk, a waste of time. Although Meng Tong had not recovered from his serious injuries, because of what happened just now, his spirit was completely different from before. He was completely immersed in the joy of becoming a peak early-stage foundation establishment master. A mere heaven-stage full cycle like Li Jingming was nothing to him. Hearing that, Li Jingming couldn't help but want to curse. Damn Meng Tong, if you didn't get the foundation elixir from Su Lingchong and use it together with the foundation elixir, do you think you can succeed in building your foundation? Come to think of it, during the trial in the back mountain. If I hadn't sacrificed my own elixirs and cooperated with you, you wouldn't even have been able to obtain this foundation establishment pill. Now, you actually have the face to mock me for being weak? This person is too shameless. However, Li Jingming suppressed his anger. Ignoring Meng Tong's sarcastic remarks, he turned to Meng Jueguang and said, Senior Martial Brother Meng, you saw it too. Lin Yi's group already has 3 early-stage foundation building cultivators, while we only have boss Meng Tong. If this goes on, the overall gap will only grow bigger and bigger. So I think the most important thing right now is to do it. We need to find someone to share the burden with boss Meng Tong. Only then can we block Lin Yi's attack and regain the initiative in the future. Hearing that, Meng Jueguang immediately fell silent. They were all smart people. Although Li Jingming didn't say it directly, his meaning was already very clear. He wanted to be like Meng Tong. Stand up and deal with Lin Yi's group. If it was just this simple hot-blooded idea, Meng Jueguang wouldn't be put in a difficult position. The key was that Li Jingming wasn't a brainless trash like Meng Tong. With his current strength of heaven stage, wanting to stand up and challenge Lin Yi's group of 3 early-stage foundation-building cultivators was simply a fool's talk. Moreover, he would absolutely not do that. The key point of Li Jingming's words was that he wanted to become the person who could share the burden with Meng Tong, and the prerequisite was naturally that he had that kind of strength. At the very least, he had to be an early-stage foundation-building expert. And if he wanted to break through to foundation building in a short period of time, then he must have the coordination of medicinal pills. Not to mention the foundation-building elixir like Meng Tong did. At the very least, a foundation-building elixir was the most basic. This was what Meng Jueguang found difficult. In terms of strength and loyalty, in his opinion, Li Jingming was already qualified enough. Normally, giving him a foundation-building elixir wouldn't be a big deal, but the problem was that he didn't have a foundation-building elixir on hand. For a young master like Su Lingchong, a mere foundation-building elixir was nothing in his eyes. Even if it was foundation-building elixir that couldn't be bought in the market, he could get it with just a call. But for Meng Jueguang, this matter wasn't so easy to handle. Although he was the big brother in charge of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion and was in charge of the distribution of the newcomers' benefits, it seemed like he had quite a bit of power, but the resources in his hands had never included the foundation-building elixir. One had to know that in the early years, due to the lack of resources, the Welcome Pavilion didn't even provide the foundation-building elixir to the newcomers. If the newcomers wanted to break through to foundation building, the biggest thing they relied on was the training cave and a bit of spirit jade. The foundation-building elixir, on the other hand, was a benefit that had only appeared in recent years, and the quantity was extremely limited. Usually, it would be left for the last few newcomers with the best performance. Until this year, due to the special care of the miracle doctor Zhang Liju, who was far away in Middle Island, the amount of foundation-building elixir distributed to the Welcome Pavilion had increased exponentially. This was why the first month of the Back Mountain Trials was rewarded with foundation-building elixir. This was something unimaginable in previous years. But even so, with Meng Jueguang's position, he still couldn't interfere with the distribution of the foundation-building elixir. The reason was simple: he was only a senior disciple in charge of the Welcome Pavilion, and he was far from qualified. In the entire Welcome Pavilion, there were only 2 people who had the right to speak on the distribution of the foundation-building elixir. One was the head Hu Yunfeng, and the other was the vice head Feng Song. According to the rules, the third head had a certain amount of right to speak, but Lu Bianren had long since become a marginal character, and he was about to be kicked out, so naturally he wasn't considered. If it was said that Meng Jueguang had already replaced Lu Bianren as the third head, he would be able to interfere with the distribution of the foundation-building elixir out of respect for young Master Su, but unfortunately, he wasn't the third head yet. The distribution of the foundation-building elixir had nothing to do with him, and as a master who was about to break through to the middle phase of the foundation-building elixir, there was no way he would store elixirs that he couldn't use. What could he do? However, if Meng Jueguang just rejected Li Jingming's request and said that he couldn't do anything about it, it wouldn't make sense. This wasn't because he suddenly found his conscience, but because of all sorts of deeper concerns. Not only was it embarrassing to do this in front of his follower, but if word of this got out, it would be a huge blow to his reputation as the head senior disciple. After all, Li Jingming was the first new disciple under him, other than Meng Tong. Compared to the other new disciples, Li Jingming was obviously stronger, and it could be said that he was willing to work without complaint. Even if he didn't make any big contributions, at least he had put in blood, sweat, and tears. Chapter 38:14. Biased, useless, mean, ungrateful. Once these rumors spread, the hearts of the rookies under him would scatter. Once the hearts of the rookies were scattered, it would be difficult to gather them again. If even the rookies under him no longer took his words seriously, then what difference would there be between him, the so-called big senior brother in charge, and this kind of transparent, marginalized person? Meng Jueguang was very clear that even if he had already latched onto a big tree like Su Lingchong, if he wanted to be valued in the future, then he still needed to have enough strength. This strength did not only refer to himself, but also to the rookies under him. These people were the foundation for him to soar in the future. Therefore, Meng Jueguang could not just reject Li Jingming. Even if he did not have a foundation establishment pill, he would at least have to give a reasonable answer. After hesitating for a while, Meng Jueguang finally said hesitantly, "Xingming, I am very gratified that you have such intentions. However, it's a pity that I don't have a foundation establishment pill on hand right now. Otherwise, why would I need you to ask? I would have given it to you long ago, right?" Hearing this, Li Jingming's heart immediately sank. Although he had secretly become Lin Yi's spy, what he told Meng Jueguang about wanting to break through to foundation establishment was not a lie at all. As one of the top 5 rookies in Blue Cloud Pavilion, the other 4 were already early-stage foundation establishment experts. Only he, Li Jingming, was still struggling at Heaven Stage Great Circle. Moreover, he could not see any hope. This kind of feeling was really a kind of torture for him. Although he carried a blood feud and wanted to keep a low profile, this low profile also had a limit. If he, Li Jingming, watched helplessly as the people around him, whose talents were not as good as his, reached foundation establishment successfully, and he, Li Jingming, remained at Heaven Stage Great Circle without moving, then it would not be low profile, but idiotic. Therefore, Li Jingming really wanted to break through to foundation establishment. Moreover, he did not ask for much, just a foundation establishment pill. Logically speaking, Li Jingming was now Lin Yi's spy, and this kind of thing could be brought up to Lin. However, he hadn't been on Lin Yi's side for long. Apart from sending a few letters of intelligence, he felt that he had not done anything for Lin Yi. He didn't have any outstanding achievements. Strictly speaking, when he first joined Lin Yi's side, he was forced to save his life after his sneak attack failed. It was not voluntary, so Lin Yi spared his life was already a great kindness. Therefore, he really did not have the face to ask Lin Yi for this. In contrast, the current situation happened to be that Lin Yi's group was in an absolute advantage, and Meng Jueguang also needed someone to stand up and share the pressure for him. Therefore, Li Jingming wanted to take this opportunity to ask Meng Jueguang. Looking at his past achievements, coupled with the current grim situation, Meng Jueguang should try to get him a foundation establishment pill. But unexpectedly, Meng Jueguang did not have this intention at all. Although he said that he did not have a foundation establishment pill, this sentence was very likely to be the truth, but if he did not have it, couldn't he think of a way? It must be known that Meng Tong, who was also a subordinate of this big senior brother, had consumed a large number of rare pills. Not to mention the foundation establishment pill, the foundation establishment liquid, and even the 4th grade Great Recover pill, which was known as a life-saving divine pill. Moreover, there were 2 of them. On Meng Tong, who was a piece of trash that couldn't even be supported by a wall, he was willing to invest such a large amount of his hard-earned capital. As for him, who was similarly loyal and devoted, or at least had been a loyal and devoted little brother before, he wasn't even willing to part with a single foundation establishment pill. Favoring one and discriminating against the other, this kind of conduct really made one's heart go cold. Fortunately, back then, he was wise enough to secretly rely on boss Lin Yi as a spy. Otherwise, if he really wholeheartedly followed Meng Jueguang, this kind of trash, to rely on a mountain and work like a cow or a horse, then he, Li Jingming, would really be blind, walking down a dark path. Seeing Li Jingming's disappointed expression, Meng Jueguang also knew that his actions were somewhat unjustifiable. After thinking for a while, he then added, "However, although senior brother does not have a foundation establishment pill on hand, I have specially prepared 3 sets of elixir ingredients to refine the foundation establishment pill for you, Jingming. When we return, I can give them to you. As long as you find an alchemist to help you, not to mention 1 foundation establishment pill, even 3 foundation establishment pills will be fine. I guarantee that it will be enough for you to break through to the foundation establishment stage." Li Jingming was stunned. At first, he thought that it was rare for Meng Jueguang to find his conscience, but in the end, it was actually to give him the ingredients and let him find an alchemist to refine the foundation establishment pill himself. Are you fucking kidding me? Although the foundation establishment pill was an extremely rare pill for a Heaven Stage Great Circle expert like him, strictly speaking, it could not be considered rare at all. The elixir ingredients needed to refine the foundation establishment pill were basically some common goods. A set of foundation establishment pill ingredients, even if measured by the market price, would at most be worth 3 or 4 pieces of spiritual jade. 3 sets of foundation establishment pill ingredients added together, at most, would be worth the price of 10 pieces of spiritual jade. In other words, Meng Jueguang would at most be willing to spend 10 pieces of spiritual jade on him, Li Jingming. Wanting him to invest more than this, there was no way. Even Meng Jueguang was not willing to even take out 10 pieces of spiritual jade. Although his words sounded very nice, saying that it was specially prepared for Li Jingming, but common goods like the foundation establishment pill ingredients did not need to be specially prepared at all. Any cultivator with a little bit of background, after unconsciously accumulating in the past, would be able to casually dig out a few sets of these elixir ingredients from their personal storage. At the end of the day, these elixir ingredients were simply dispensable goods to Meng Jueguang. They were thrown into a corner, trash that he would normally not even bother to take a look at. But now, he took advantage of the situation and said that they were elixir ingredients that were specially prepared for Li Jingming. If it was not for the fact that he had been carrying a blood feud for so many years and had trained a body of extraordinary forbearance, Li Jingming would have directly scolded out loud. You, Meng Jueguang, do you have to trick your own people like this? If he directly shook his head and refused, even if he was mean and ungrateful, at least it could be said to be open and above board. In the end, Meng Jueguang not only did not want to give him the foundation establishment pill, but also had to worry about his reputation. So, he stubbornly used these elixir ingredients that even he himself looked down upon to deceive him, and even made it seem like he was very magnanimous and considerate of his subordinates. What did it mean to be a whore and also to have a chastity? This was it. Before Li Jingming could say anything, Meng Tong, who was at the side, jumped up in shock. Fuck, 3 sets of foundation establishment pill ingredients. This was 3 building foundation dawn. 9th cousin brother, you are too biased, you have never given me so much before. Chapter 38:15. Li Jingming's face darkened even further. A perfectly reasonable and legitimate request was casually duped by someone else with some scraps. How could this be considered as taking advantage of others and being secretly happy? If it was Meng Tong, you'd better show me how happy you are. 3 sets of foundation building pill materials, in theory, were indeed enough to refine 3 foundation building pills. It was also enough for him, Li Jingming, to break through to foundation building realm. But the problem was, as a mere newcomer in Blue Cloud Pavilion, where would he find the financial resources to find a pill master to help refine it? At the pill hall, no matter what kind of pill was refined, other than needing to provide the materials himself, there was another basic condition, which was to hand over 200 spiritual jades. One had to know that even senior brother Ku Bai, who had many years of savings, couldn't meet this condition, let alone Li Jingming, a mere heaven stage great circle newcomer. The greatest value of a pill wasn't in the materials, but in the refining process. Not to mention 3 sets of materials, even if it was 5 or 8 sets, no pill master could guarantee that they could definitely refine one foundation building pill. Putting aside the pill hall, if he wanted to go to the city square to buy a foundation establishment pill, it would cost at least 250 spirit jades. He, Li Jingming, simply did not have this purchasing power. In other words, the 3 sets of foundation building pill materials that Meng Jueguang gave him were completely useless. Meng Jueguang must have completely expected this result, but he still had to pretend to be a good person here. Looking at Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong's faces, thinking about how blind he was to sell his life for these kinds of people, Li Jingming simply felt disgusted from the bottom of his heart. Then thank you, senior brother Meng, for your concern. Li Jingming could only forcefully suppress his sullen depression and feigned civility with the other party. Meng Jueguang chuckled, Jingming, it's good that you can understand my painstaking efforts. I'm very gratified. Work hard in the future, I definitely won't mistreat you. Of course, I definitely won't disappoint senior brother Meng's expectations. The corner of Li Jingming's mouth twitched unconsciously. How stupid must I be to believe Meng Jueguang's bullshit that he wouldn't mistreat me? Now that things had come to this, he had completely lost hope in Meng Jueguang. If not for the fact that he wanted to continue working as a mole for Lin. He even had the intention to fall out with the other party in front of everyone. Fortunately, his forbearance was far above that of an ordinary person. No matter how disgusted he felt, he would not let it go. He could also continue to endure it. In addition to the consideration of continuing to be a spy for Lin Yi, what Meng Tong said just now also made him very concerned. Meng Tong actually said that he was about to advance a step further. Just now, when Su Lingchong and Meng Jueguang were talking, they purposely found a remote corner. Even Li Jingming couldn't get too close, so he didn't know what these people were planning. However, he could already be sure that what these people were talking about was definitely related to the words that Meng Tong blurted out just now. As for Meng Tong's casual words, if one carefully pondered over them, there was a great mystery hidden in this. Meng Tong had just built his foundation not long ago. Furthermore, he relied on the foundation building elixir and foundation building elixir to barely succeed. Logically speaking, with his foundation, he wouldn't be able to advance a step further within a few years. But this guy actually shouted out such words now. And judging from this tone, these words shouldn't be Meng Tong's daydreaming. It was real and practical. Then the biggest possibility was that Su Lingchong and Meng Jueguang had reached some kind of agreement in private. And to be able to let Meng Tong advance a step further in a short period of time, it could be seen that young Master Su was preparing to pay a big price again. Although with Li Jingming's vision, it was hard to imagine anything that could let Meng Tong, this kind of trash with a weak foundation, advance a step further in a short period of time. There was no doubt about this information. It had to be revealed to boss Lin Yi as soon as possible, so that they could prepare early. Li Jingming knew that with Lin Yi's hidden strength at the peak of the early stage of foundation building, even if Meng Tong was able to advance a step further, it was still impossible for him to pose any substantial threat to him. However, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were different. Although the two of them were already in the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, if they were to face Meng Tong, who was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm, it would be very bad for them. After receiving 3 sets of foundation building elixir materials from Meng Jueguang, late that night, Li Jingming took advantage of the fact that there was no one in the surroundings and went to Lin Yi's cave number 1 at the foot of the mountain. Jingming, why did you come personally? Seeing Li Jingming appear at the entrance of his cave, Lin Yi couldn't help but be astonished, and then immediately led him into the cave. As Lin Yi's spy, in order to ensure his concealment and safety under normal circumstances, Li Jingming had to avoid any contact with Lin Yi. Even if he wanted to pass on information, it would be through secret codes and notes, and absolutely not face-to-face communication. After all, no matter what, Meng Jueguang could be considered a cunning old fox. Moreover, with so many new Blue Cloud Pavilion members under his command, he had many eyes and ears. No matter how careful Li Jingming was, once he came into contact with Lin Yi, it would be very easy for him to give himself away, and the outcome would be very hard to say. Since ancient times, traitors were always more hateful than enemies. Perhaps Meng Jueguang wouldn't do anything to Lin Yi's underlings like Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, but if he discovered that Li Jingming had betrayed him and become Lin Yi's spy, he might really take the risk and kill him out of desperation. However, the reason why Li Jingming took the risk to personally appear at Lin Yi's cave this time was because he had another purpose. Boss Lin Yi, I inadvertently found out some information from Meng Tong's words today, and I feel that I need to report it to you. Li Jingming's face was serious, and he immediately told everything that Meng Tong had said before, as well as his own analysis and conjecture, to Lin. There's actually such a thing? It seems that this young Master Su is really willing to invest this kind of capital on Meng Tong. He really thinks highly of me. After listening, Lin Yi couldn't help but be stunned and speechless. His analysis was exactly the same as Li Jingming's. Although he didn't know what kind of capital Su Lingchong and Meng Jueguang were prepared to invest, one thing was certain, and that was, as Lin Yi had previously guessed, the other party couldn't hold back and was going